And we're live. What's going on, everybody? Everybody, chance to trickle in here. I'm surprised I haven't got my notification from YouTube yet. And anytime. Oh, I guess I gotta share it first, huh? There it is. It is a little delayed. All right. All right. Somebody send a comment so I know we're getting out there. Let me share some of these links. And everybody, what's going on, Wayne? What's up, brother? Yeah, I think Wednesday I crashed out, but I guess Saturday, if if I missed adding you, Wayne, that's one of the reasons I don't generally like to when I talk about steel builders and people doing parts and stuff like that. There's such a large list, and you try to think of people that you're forgetting, and sometimes you forget the most obvious ones that you never would forget. So that's why I try not to do lists like that because I don't have it all written down, and I know just as soon as I do, I'll forget Bruiser or Jason or Sean or somebody. Somebody always I forget somebody, and sometimes I forget some of my buddies. So I'm sorry about that, brother. I didn't mean to exclude you. Come on, Clint. All right, let me get these links shared before I get too busy and talking. So what's everybody? Hopefully everybody had a good week. Yeah, we crashed on Wednesday. My modem went out on my internet modem, so that wasn't good. But we're back up. I do want to make a note for some people out there that may not know it. I changed the name from DIY Shine and Stuff to DIY Shine and Steel Building, a little bit more descriptive than just stuff, and that's basically what we're into is making your own shine and making your own parts, steels, and for builders and people that that do build to post links of their stuff that they've got, and to if they do any building videos of them building stuff, to kind of share that as well, and share some of their knowledge. So I took off the stuff and added steel building. Maybe eventually we'll do some off the grid living kind of stuff because I'm into the canning and all that stuff. But I don't want to, I'm not going to change the podcast, but just that group, kind of open the scope up a little bit to get a little bit more interest and get a little bit more conversation, people engaging, and people seem to like talk about off the grid living and canning and preserving and canning their meats and stuff like that. So we may add that, but right now we're just talking about shining and steels, and we'll move up from there. But let me get these links posted, and then I will say hey to it. Also, wait a minute, I messed up here somehow. Let me try that again. Uh, I don't know how I messed that up. Maybe that'd be better. Yeah, that's better. Well, my memory's getting bad. Also, before we get started, I want to put some prayers out there for the brother Jim Miles. He just got knee surgery on his other knee, so he's already had it on one, and now he got it on the other one. And Michael Bowen, who had a pretty bad fall last week, and he's had a pretty tough little go of it. And also JB Wagonmaker's birthday today, so happy birthday, JB. So let me get these links here. I don't want to post to Mark till he's done with his live, so I have to watch, keep track on that. I'll post in there when he's done. Because I'm not going to post on somebody's page where they got a live going. That's not very cool. Anyway, man, I hate all this dead air. I guess I should be talking instead of just sitting here drop jawed and dumb. Get these links shared out. I think that's probably the last one it's going to let me share. Let's see. Well, I share that one too, so I have it queued up and ready. Okay, yes, got it. So anyway, let's see here. What's going on, Ben? What's up, my grip? What's up, brother? There's Jim. Good to see you, brother. How's that knee coming along, brother? We was just talking about you. You came to the right place, brother. Well, that depends on the fruit that you're using. Some fruits, have more sugars in it than others, so it just depends on the amount of sugars in your fruit. I suppose you're talking about to make a brandy instead of a wine. Now, a lot of winemakers will just use, if they can, if the fruit has enough sugar in it, they'll just ferment the sugars that are naturally in the fruit. But a lot of the fruits just don't have enough sugars to really amount to. It's okay for wine, for like a low alcohol content wine of 5% or whatever. 4% would be a 8 proof wine. It's 4 to 6 is about what a beer is. So wine's not a whole lot more. So it doesn't take a whole lot to make a wine, but to run a brandy and to get a decent yield, that's the giveaway. So, the more sugar you add, the hotter it's going to be, and the less flavorful and smooth. So there's a kind of a happy medium. We use a hydrometer, and on the hydrometer, you want to read get a sugar content of anywhere from 1060 to 1090 in that range. A lot of people shoot for 1070 or 1080. It just depends on what you got going. Most of your commercial distilleries that do the grains, they'll convert those things in no time, and they'll ferment for a few days, 3 4 days, and then they'll run it. So it's that 1060 and it's ready to go. They get their 10 12% ABV, and they go, with that. So it really just depends on the fruit. But what we use is a hydrometer, and on the hydrometer, it will show you. Basically, it's based on the density of the water. So the more sugars you get in the water, it's calibrated with zero, right. So you drop it in water, it'll go all the way down to where it says zero. So you can check your gravity, your hydrometers to see, if the gravity reads zero with just water, and you kind of test them that way, make sure they're reading right. But as you add sugars, it gets more thick and syrupy and viscous. So it actually measures viscosity instead of density. But so becomes viscous and thick and syrupy, and as it becomes more viscous, it gets thicker like a syrup, and the hydrometer won't float as deep, so it'll start reading. Just like salt, you start adding salt to water, it becomes more, viscous or dense, and it becomes, the hydrometer will float higher in it. So as you add things to water, it's going to change the viscosity of it. So as you add fruit juices, it starts doing the same thing. And when you take your hydrometer, if you got a bunch of pulp and seeds and other stuff in there, you definitely want to kind of strain that to the side and get just the juice when you take a reading. Best to use like a graduated cylinder, and your hydrometer, and take a reading, and it'll be your starting gravity. So you'll write that number down. So if it's 1070 and or 1080, and you finish out, you'll know you have about a 10%. Hey, it's 10%. Oh boy, 080, maybe 12. Let's see. I can't remember all these. I used to have 12. Or no, here 1.0. Yeah, it's about 12. About 10.5 if it finishes to 0 or to 1.000. But if it drops down all the way to 0.990, it'll be closer to 12. So, and that means it's dry. So if you're making wine, and you let it go below the 1.0 line, it becomes a dry wine. If you keep it at or slightly above the 1.00 line, it'll be a little bit sweeter wine. So I never can remember exactly what that is, but yeah, 1.00 is about 10%. So you'll use that, to mix. You get your fruit, and now as far as water, you can start with the water. So you'll do so many pounds of fruit, so many pounds of water, and you'll just get different recipes. So there'll be 1,000 different recipes. So there's no right or wrong answer to this question. Of course, the less fruit, the more water, the more sugar, right? So you're going to need, and probably going to be a little less flavorful. The more fruit, the less water, and less sugar, more flavorful, but maybe less proof, as far as distilling wise. And in the yeast, it's generally a gram, uh, which is basically a packet, and that'll do up to 5 gallons. And a gram is basically close to a teaspoonful. Um, so a teaspoon for every 5 gallons. I go a little bit over that, and it depends on the yeast again. And I always do a starter to make sure that it's that it's going. So Radar, have you ever made any shine at all? Just totally green, just never done it. Watch the show, know a little bit about it. What's going on? How's it going, Jason? That's good to hear, brother. Good to hear. On the mend. All right, we got some people want to learn how to make shine, so maybe we'll have a beginning to end. Let me scroll down here. I'm a little bit behind, obviously, already, so I tend to stay that way. So let me catch up with you. If you made a comment and I haven't addressed you yet, give me time. So I can't. I don't even see your comments yet. I need to add comments on the screen there. So, um, all right. So we got a couple wanting to learn. That's good to hear. So we'll start from beginning to end. I use a mud mixer. Basically, it's for drywall mud. But you can use a paint. A lot of people prefer paint stirrers. Everybody has their own druthers, but my stuff's upstairs. I'd rather get it. I've got my hydrometer upstairs. I've got some apple wine going. I'm getting ready to add some rye to, and my mud mixer. But it's basically just a mud mixer. It's got like a little spiral on each side, and then a little ring at the bottom, and they use it to stir up drywall mud. And it works. Just anything like that. You can use a paddle, stainless paddle or spoon, depending on how deep your, fermenter is or cooking pot. But a lot of times nowadays I don't cook a lot. I do the steeping method, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. It works just as well, and you don't run the risk of scorching. So, after cooking it, and scorching a few runs and losing a few heirloom grain corns that were pretty expensive and big batches that get pretty expensive with heirloom corn, I decided, I'm going to try this steeping method. I've always cooked it, but let's try the steeping method, and it worked just fine. I got good conversion and good flavor. So it's a little different, and we'll go over it tonight. We'll talk about that. We're going to do an A to Z since we got a couple of beginners in here tonight that's never done it. So it'd be a good night for everybody. Just kind of sit back and eat some popcorn and ask you questions as we go. We're going to try to take you from A to Z. Um, but I'm going to try to answer all the questions first and get caught up. So bear with me. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, we're on YouTube and Facebook. Sometimes we do Rumble and Kick. If we can if I can get it figured out. Sometimes they make me enter certain things, and I have a couple of different Kick accounts. One I use for gaming and one I use for militia, and it's all messed up, or we'd be on there tonight too. But get a little bit of interest from there. Yeah, anything with starches, bread. You can make moonshine from bread. That's for the prison hooch. A lot of that comes in. But yeah, anything that's got starches, you can spaghetti sauce vodka. There you go. That'd be like a Bloody Mary, but spaghetti Mary. There you go. That'd be pretty interesting. I do a salsarita, which is kind of something similar, but it's just I make my fiance makes best damn salsa ever. I grew up tomatoes and all kinds of different kinds of peppers and lots of different types of tomatoes, yellows and reds and cherry tomatoes and all different kinds. And she Makes some really good salsa. So, I tried that with a little, I called it salsa Rita, but it wasn't tequila that I mixed it with. It was just regular, shine. And man, it was good. So that'd be something interesting to try. But yeah, anything with starches, anything that has starches are, amylose and amylopectin. And in a minute, I'll break out the pictures and I'll show you all what those are and how enzymes can break those down into sugars that yeast can eat. So strap on your seatbelts. We're going to take us a little ride on the moonshine train. Proofing period. Fieldbilly's got some plans if you want to make your own. They're pretty easy to solder together. If not, Fieldbilly's got them, and I can't name everybody else because the list is too long. And like I said at the very beginning, if I start naming somebody, I know I'll forget somebody. So I just always, mention old Fieldbilly because he's the head of the militia, and he's also the one that sponsors this podcast with StreamYards. He pays for our StreamYards for us to podcast with. So I have to mention my brother. But there's quite a few that do it out there. But there's a lot of plans. If you can solder a pipe, that's actually a good way to practice soldering. Is on a parrot or something like that, because you can always just solder the shit out of it. Might not be pretty, but but there's a lot of plans out there, and actually. I might have some. I definitely have some plans. I'll throw in on the militia page and on the DIY Shine and Steel Building page. Wooden paddle for canoe. I was just about to say, man, you got to watch out for that lacquer or varnish that's on them, because I've seen people do that and it goes in shiny and comes out dull. And I'm like, man, you just varnished your whole run. So yeah, paint mixer, yeah, that's a good thing to use. That or the mud mixers work great. Yeah, we'll get some plans for you in the file section on the in the militia. If you might be some there already, just go to the militia files and just type parrot and go to DIY Shine and Steel Building and hit the files and just type in parrot in the search and see what you can get. Should be one in there. If not, I can post something. Let me make a note. All right, because if I don't make a note, I'll forget. My whole desk is full of notes here, man. That's what happens when you get old. Hey, brother, it's easy. All you got to do is flux that pipe in both pieces on the outside of the tube and on the inside of the fitting, and put them together. And when you put them together, you'll notice that flux makes a little build up all the way around the outside edge. Don't wipe that off. Leave that there, because when you put the heat to the fitting, not the pipe, but the fitting, you want to heat the fitting always. When you start heating that fitting, it'll start sucking that flux back up in there. And once it gets to a certain temperature, you just go around it with your solder, and it'll suck that right up in there. Just don't get it too hot. Once it starts melting and sucking up, you kind of pull your heat away and just touch it with heat to keep it going, right? And just go all the way around it. And it doesn't matter if it's messy, it just has to be leak free. So it's a good way to practice. Hello, Miss Tammy. Good to see you in here, hon. What's going on, Carpenter? Yeah, good point. The hydrometer I'm talking about is for, it's called a triple scale hydrometer. It's for beer, wine, and liquor making, and it shows your AB. They call it triple scale because it shows your brie and your potential percentage and your potential proof. So those are the three things, and the gravity. So those are the different things that it will show you. So good point. And then some of the hydrometers out there are for measuring alcohol. So one will measure your mash, and one measures the alcohol when you get done. So it'll tell you what your proof is, your percent. So we know 100% would be 100 proof or 200 proof, right? Which is as high as it goes, and it's really hard to achieve that. So generally, 190 proof, is about as far as you can get, unless it's in a vacuum. Once it touches air, it's yeah, I got you, brother. I know. What's going on, Trickster? Good to see you here, brother. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man. A little tired, a little tired. Yeah, freeze now. We're talking about fruit now. Inside, it depends on the fruit that you're talking about. So if you have like um, peaches or something that's real meaty, freezing those definitely helps, but it's not going to bust everything up and open up all your cells like it would if it were a grape or a blackberry or a raspberry, something like that. Because basically inside of like a grape, you have just the pulpy mess, and that's pretty easy to break open. And so is a blackberry. If you muddle it and get all those little tiny berries opened up, that's basically the individual cells. So, but like on a meaty fruit, really pectic enzyme helps break up a lot of that. Break it opens up the cell walls basically. So cells all they have a cellular wall, and it's using a pectic enzyme will eat away at some of that wall, and it'll force it to release the sugars that are contained within that cell. So that cell stores sugars to feed the cell, right? And that's what gives it the energy. And all these fruits, they store this energy to help feed the seed, right? So when it drops and it gets covered with leaves and it starts breaking down and decomposing, the natural amylase inside the um, fruit itself starts breaking down the sugars to feed the growth of the seed, right? And the seed eats these, consumes them, uses that for energy to send out the root, right? Once it gets the root sent out, it's consuming all this, sugars, stored sugars, and it converts it into energy and to send out the little first shoot to come up. And once that shoot opens up and starts absorbing sunlight, then photosynthesis becomes the new energy, and it starts using photosynthesis to feed the growth, so it doesn't need the sugars and stuff anymore, except for maybe to some more stable root growth or something like that. But it starts using the sun for its energy, so it doesn't need those. So what we would try to do is break open all those cells and get all those sugars and flavors out, flavonoids and polyphenols and all this out to flavor the wines or the brandies, depending on what you're going to make. And then pectic enzymes is something that breaks down those cell walls. It's a cellulose, and pectic enzymes break down cellulose. But that's also what creates wood alcohol, which we know is methanol, which is four shots that we have to pitch off. So when you use those pectic enzymes, you're going to get a little bit more four shot. Yeah, I'm glad. Hope she's doing better, brother. I did that for many, many years before my mom passed away. Good on you, brother. Good on you. Yeah, I like sweet, but Ann can't drink them anymore. I made a sweet heat of white wine. It's white grapes, and I kept it a little on the sweet side and high proof. Man, that stuff it's almost like a mixed drink, man. It's like 18% ABV, so it's about 30 some proof wine, right? It's platinum, man. It's crazy. But it's sweet and it'll get you hammered quick. And it'll give you a hell of a headache too if you drink too much. A couple bottles and it's on, man. Good deal. How'd it come out? Awesome, awesome. So what we're going to talk about is going to be a little bit foreign to you, Bobby. I mean, beer makers tend to start low and work their way up because they don't typically use corn, right? Which is very high temperature to gelatinize. So we generally start high and work backwards. So it's going to be a little bit different, but there's nothing that says that you can't step mash your adjunct grains, meaning your oats, your barley, your wheat, your rye, and all that good stuff separately, right? And bring them up like you would normally a beer. Just leave out the hops and bring those up like you would a beer. Cook your corn separately, gelatinize that, and as it's cooling, when it gets down to the point that you add the malts, then you could add those adjunct grains into it and use the malts from all those if you haven't denatured them. So, but that gives you. Yeah, we don't stand for that kind of shit. How's it staying up there? Somebody comment, get that shit off my screen. Somebody comment, please. I don't want that on my screen. Yeah, I tell you what, until that, well, that's good. That's gone now. I was gonna say until that shit's gone, I'm just gonna have to. I can't stand some people, man. I swear to God. I have to see. I'm glad I got the comment thing because I would have never seen that. I just saw a whole screen full of that. Oh, hell, he did it a bunch of times. Shit. Stupidity, man. And just like that, on a stage, you just made yourself look like an idiot. Yeah. And I'm not down there yet. I had to scroll down real quick, so I'm gonna have to scroll back. I'm sorry, y'all had to see that shit. I hate that. Yeah, we don't go for that shit around here. Is it back? Oh, they're just flooding us with different ones, huh? Get a life, piece of shit. Wow. Yeah, it's okay to be black anywhere, man. That's a bunch of shit. I can't stand that. Man, that bothers me. I hate people like that, man. All right, let me figure out where it was. Appreciate you, Carpenter. Yeah, if anytime somebody posts that and it's on the screen up here, with me that where we show the comments on stage and yeah, just hit it, just type in hi real quick and just screen that off there, get real quick and get rid of it. Um, Let me figure out where it was. Yeah, it's just a bunch of clowns. Probably have a dozen accounts that do this shit. Oh well. Sucks that there's people like this. I'm gonna turn this off until yeah. So you're not gonna be on my screen anymore, so nobody gets to see it. Shit. So maybe that'll help cut it back for a minute. But they probably have a dozen accounts. They'll just keep logging off and back into the next one and troll for a while. Hopefully they'll get tired of it. If not, God will take care of them in the end. 17%. That's good, man. That's about as good as you can get out of your yeast. You know, I think the Lalvin EC1118, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae Bayanus does about 18. So that's about as good as you're going to get. No, this is not pre-recorded, brother. This is live, Burger. We are live, my friend. All right. All right, Terry. Did I miss your question, brother? If so, I'm sorry. Okay, I ordered some of the Japanese yellow label yeast. I'm not sure if it'll do the job it says it'll do. Now, if it's the yellow label angel yeast, and let me see, I got a picture of that. It might be on my phone. I believe it's on my phone. Tag on it. Let's see. Yeah, it's on my damn phone. But anyway, I can pull it off the internet real quick. Actually, I just posted in the militia page a picture of that from my phone because I took a picture. But it'll come up quick in my search because let me go to Lalvin real quick, and because you want to get the right kind. I had no idea that they had so many daggone yeasts until I pulled them up, and then boom. Yeah, that's not a good picture. Come on, do better. So let's see. Yeah, it's got some koji in it, which is a specific fungus that helps the enzymes. Yeah, this is a good little picture. Here, let me copy that real quick, screenshot that for you. Because there's a lot of different ones, and you want to make sure that you get the right one. And this is how you can be sure to get the right one. Let me pull that up here. Clint, I'll turn on comments here in a minute until we get rid of these trolls. I'm not going to let them that post up on the screen. And the comments is one thing, but I don't want to give them any kind of screen time because. So if they say something like that again, just hit high or something, and we'll get past them. That doesn't happen often, so screenshots, damn it. The hell? Come on, I got so many, it takes a while to load. Okay, here we go. Let me add. Slow today. Okay, here we go. Now, hopefully y'all can see this, but you see that little yellow square right there? Inside that's 3 Japanese letters, and right there is the same 3 letters. And it says starter of liquor making. So this is the yellow label angel yeast. Now, a lot of them will look just like this, so make sure it has that little square yellow box there. You sit there in the very center to the left, and then to the right of that, it says starter of liquor making. Make sure that it has that because they've got probably 40, 50 different types of yeast, and they've got beer making yeast, wine making yeast, but this specific yeast has the koji fungus in it, and it will help break down enzymes. It'll help break down the starches with its enzymes in grains, so without having to gelatinize or anything. So you can cold ferment without having to cook the corn to gelatinize it and then add an alpha amylase and then the beta glucanase or the glucoamylase to convert it all down to fermentable sugars. This will do that all on its own. So you can just use this yeast and just regular grains. Make sure the ground, the same, but just add your yeast, and don't have to be malted or anything. And you add this to it, and it will break down the starches and convert them into alcohol. It does take longer, and some people say it's hit and miss on flavor. I've heard good things, bad things about it. But it's definitely a lot easier. It's little bit. It's considerably easier than cooking your corn and going that route. So, for those that don't, or if you're in a situation where you can't, cook and do all that, and you just want to, make some corn liquor, and you got some cracked corn, and which is a great way to test this without having, spending a lot of money on different grains and malts and heirlooms and all this stuff. Just try it with some cracked corn. Just get some good old cracked corn and make sure you got it cracked to a decent, some of the cracked corn is really way too coarse, and then some's, cornmeal's too probably fine. You want something kind of in between, but it'll work with either. And make some, inexpensive tests. And I keep saying I'm going to, and I'm definitely going to. I bought a little brick of it, so we're going to give her a shot and see how it works. And let's see if I can remove that now. What's going on here, Billy? And yeah, when I say cold, I mean, when I say cold fermentation, I mean you don't have to heat and cook the grains. That's what I mean. You just do it at room temperature, 80, 80, 85 degrees. Yeah, that's good, brother. That's a good. All right. I'm sorry I missed your question, Terry. So Terry did the right thing. If I miss your question, don't get mad at me. Just say, hey, I think you skipped over my question. So if I do that, because especially with all the trolls that we had, because I have to scroll all the way down, ban them, and then try to go back up and figure out where it was. I don't want to let them know what a pain in the ass they are. Then they'd enjoy it even more. Yeah, I think so too, Miss Tammy. I think you're right about that. Oh, I need one before I started, actually. I had to run upstairs and grab this. Wow, that's damn. That's 145. I wasn't expecting 145. What did I grab? Damn, I got a refrigerator full of different sizes. Ooh, that lit me up. I got my face red, didn't it? Man, my eyes are watering. I wasn't expecting that. I'd say it was around 900 proof. I took a big old swig of that, man. What's going on, man? Yeah, we don't want them engines get me. Show the fridge. Hey, if I take my phone up here, I don't know. I guess maybe one day. I've got a bunch in there. I mean, I've got from different festivals and handshakes everybody sends me. I put them on the fridge. I got 2 shelves full. Have I ever brewed Jinkum? No, sir. That's a new one on me, brother. So, everybody says I Google everything. I only Google what I don't know, and that's the only way you can learn. So, I'm going to learn. What the hell is. Let me put the comments back up now. The trolls are going. Jin Kim. Genkee. Sounds Japanese or something. Oh, a hallucinogen, huh? Yeah. Allowing human urine and feces to ferment in a bottle with a balloon covering the opening. No. I don't think I'm ever going to be doing that. But I tell you what, I've tasted something probably doesn't taste too much different than that either. Yeah, yeah, that's sad. It's a sad state, man. I don't get political, we try to keep all the politics and all the hate out of here and all that kind of riffraff out of here. But man, I tell you, these days times are different than when I grew up, man. They a lot different, you know. It's a sad state the world's in right now. And I think it's fueled by the media, but it's fueled by a bunch of people from outside the United States and Soros and others, and Singh, this person named Singh, they're trying to finance the destruction of America because they hate us, because they hate us. So, but we try not to get too political on here and talk about all that. We try to talk about making alcohol so we can get drunk, forget all that shit, At least we can drink them away a little bit at night and take some of the stress away. But yeah, I appreciate y'all. But by the time I see this, it's But I'm glad I've got this little show comments on stage, especially when they spam the shit out of it, because that's all I saw in that whole little corner there was racist comments. Yeah, it's a shame. Came out at 110. That's not a bad proof to come out at. Now, what you're talking about from the store, it takes a little time and a little bit of learning and patience and getting your mashes down. And the thing about it is, the more stress that your yeast have, the more off or flavors that it kind of produces, and it creates a lot of organic acids, butyric acids, and lactic acids, and other things that will affect the flavor. And there's certain bacteria that can get in there that'll affect the flavor. It may not be a bacteria that's going to bother you, but it has affected the flavor, of what you're drinking. So, chances are the alcohol is going to kill that bacteria, but there's a few that don't. But those aren't generally a big concern in distilling, because you got boiling alcohol, and there's only a few that will survive it, but there are some that will, and unfortunately botulism, I think, is one of them. But just getting your recipe down and keeping your okay. Well, there's another clown gone. Jinkum, I should have known when he asked that question. Yes, it's definitely okay to be black here, brother. We don't put up with that shit. I'm sorry it took so long for me to get to that. If I didn't see it on the little screen here in front of me, I know y'all can't see what I see, but what y'all see on the screen here is me, and then underneath it you see the comment I just highlighted, and then over to the bottom right you see comments from chat. Well, I saw it on there, but to the right of me on my whole display, y'all don't see, but I've got like just the regular chats from all the different groups, and this thing they just added recently where you all can see it. So I'm like 10 minutes behind, so I don't see, you said that comment, but almost 15 minutes ago. So that's how far I get behind, because I'm trying to answer questions as I go. So I get a little bit behind, but yeah, we don't go for that, man. We got a lot of brothers and sisters in the group just the same, and we're all children of God, here. So yeah, we don't put up that shit. You don't care about your melanins. Hey, we all bleed red, brother. I might. I might have to. All right, let's see. We do have some beginners in here, so we're going to try to start from the very beginning once I get down here. And what happens too is I keep scrolling down, and it keeps this little thing, this little scroll button. you think you're getting to the bottom of it, and then when you get to the bottom, it just jumps up, and you got a whole bunch more to get to. And I know I'm still behind, so I'm gonna try to. Yeah, I know. I try to moderate and do all this, and it's tough. What's going on, Biscuit? All right, Kevin, finally a good question. Here we go. If you have a 25-gallon still, what is the lowest you can run or should run? Meaning, is it worth running a 10-gallon run and a 20? Yeah, 10's fine. Maybe a 5-gallon is going to be pretty tough. But when it's that small, it's not as big an issue as having like a 500-gallon still and running, 50, which is 10%. So yeah, you'd be fine running 10, yeah, in a 25, it's fine. But you don't want to create a big, huge gap because you get some condensation right before it condenses before it doesn't stay hot. So it's going to start condensing before it ever gets into the cap, right? So it might end up, a little higher proof than typical. It's not going to come out the same as it usually does, but yeah. Good question. Yeah, it's talking about yellow label angel yeast. Okay, so I'm going to skip over the clown questions. Red Star makes good daddy yeast. I like Red Star makes a good Premier Rouge, which I use for my red wines. It's real good, and a Premier Blanc. And those two might have been discontinued, and they may have come out with something different. But the Premier Blanc I usually use with my lighter colored fruits and grapes, white grapes, and that's what I use for my grappa and my white wines. But yeah. Yeah, we're the militia. Moonshine militia. Yeah, bye bye. I've not used it yet. Brick's brand new, and we were talking about that militia on the militia page this week. Somebody was talking about it, and people be getting mixed results with it. So the thing about using the yellow label angel yeast, and I try to be brief because I'm trying to get caught up, but um, you can't take it. You're starting gravity because you haven't converted starches yet, right? So if you haven't converted starches, you don't have the starch content to read on your hydrometer. So as it converts the starches, the yeast consume it, that fast. So you just kind of have to work into, a good recipe, which would be 2 to 2.5 pounds of grain per gallon of water, right? And you want to kind of stick to that. 2 and a quarter, probably for beginners, a little easier to work with, and might not stress this yeast a little bit. So yeah, that's a good place to start. Yeah, the pectic enzymes, is gonna, help break the cell walls to open it up, but that doesn't help break down sugars, right? It just opens up the cell walls to release the sugars. Whereas most enzymes do, right? Like you're talking about breaking down starches to make sugars. So in most of your fruits, you'll have fructose and glucose. Mostly fructose in most of your fruits, and those are generally simple enough to where your yeast can consume them without any kind of amylase, right, or enzyme. But the pectic enzyme basically works on cellulose, which you can make liquor with cellulose, but it's a wood liquor, which makes, it makes methanol, which is 4 shots, and that's what causes you to go blind and deaf and all that good stuff. So anytime that you use the pectic enzymes, you're going to have a little bit more foreshots to throw off than you normally do. No, it has the koji. Yeah, it has the koji fungus in it that helps. It's an enzyme, so it helps break down the starches to fermentable sugars, and that's how it works without having to convert. It's a different process. Persimmon makes some really good shine. Toby makes a real good persimmon shine. Brother Toby, he makes good stuff. Uh, Tomato paste has a lot of nutrients in there, but it doesn't have the yan and fan, the yeast assimilable nitrogen and the fan free amino nitrogen, and you need those to and those are asking questions right now. Just stick with me, and Clint's going to try to answer them as he can, or I'll get to them. But the tomato paste has got like biotins, it's got calcium. There's lots and lots of minerals in there that do help a fermentation, 100%. But it doesn't have enough yan and fan. So the best thing to use, and some people don't like it, is just Fermax or Fermade or Fermo. Um, it's generally the best. It's cheap. It takes like half a teaspoon. Let's see. I didn't bring my list. I made a list. Let me just pull that up here real quick. I made a list this week for my notes, and I'm going to share it with everybody. And I've got some stuff to add to it, so I'm not complete yet. So I've got conversions to add to it as well. But I made a list called "How Much," and in it talks about how much of each thing do you generally add to your fermentation. Now, as far as diammonium phosphate, which is DAP, which is what Fermax, Fermade, Fermo, and all that is, you use about a half to 1.5 grams of diammonium phosphate per gallon, which is about a half to 1.5 teaspoons. So there again, generally speaking, a teaspoon is close to about a gram, and half a teaspoon is about a half a gram. So this is which is about half to 1.5 teaspoons per 5 gallons. So it's cheap. That stuff costs about maybe 10, 12 bucks for a big old pound bag. And I mean, every time I use it, I'm just taking out like little half teaspoons or teaspoons full. So that stuff lasts a long time. It's really very cheap to use, less expensive than tomatoes and raisins. Now, I'll get to raisins in a minute, but just not enough. So it does help. But like in the Birdwatchers recipe that has the tomato paste as a nutrient, basically, it is giving it some nutrients, but the nutrient in that recipe is the god awful amount of yeast that they have you add. I looked at one of those recipes, man, and it's like 5 times the normal amount of yeast. And what's happening is you get an overpopulation of yeast, and they start dying off because they run out of nutrients, right? And then as they die, the yeast eat the other yeast, and that's really what's feeding the yeast and that stresses them too. When they die of starvation, they stress, they cause off flavors, and then they start eating the dead yeast in the bottom, and that's really where they're getting their nutrients from. Now, raisins, I think a lot of people think raisins are a good nutrient because when you add them, all of a sudden you see some stuff working up and it starts working off fast. And that's because there's a lot of wild yeast on the raisins, but the raisins themselves don't have enough yan or fan either. They can add good flavor and good mouthfeel to your fermentation. So both of those don't hurt. They're not bad to add, and it's fine to use them. But when you do use them, try to add a little diammonium phosphate and DAP or Fermax, Fermo, Fermade. Any of those work well. I think mine's Fermax is what I use, but it and you can step feed it. You don't have to give it all at once. You can give it a quarter teaspoon, and halfway through give it another quarter teaspoon per gallon, right? And that works fine, to step feed it. And some wine recipes call for that, and they recommend that. So yeah, that's not a problem either. Just kind of that way you don't over energize things and get the yeast too active, and that can kind of stress them too. So the whole key to everything, and especially in winemaking, and beer making is keeping the stress levels down, you know. Hey, what's up, brother? Yeah, I know. I crashed Wednesday night. I didn't have a heart attack. I just, my net went out. My modem went down. So the next day they brought me out a new modem and we back up running. Good to see you, brother. All right. But yeah, we're gonna, for the beginners in here, we're gonna go through, yeah, I tried to get Clint to tell you, but it was strange that it stayed up a little while. If y'all remember, Ann came over and said, "Hey, you know, is my net's down?" And I was still streaming. I was still getting questions and answering. So for some reason, hers went down before mine. But yeah, it wasn't just 10 seconds later, mine crashed. Yeah, it'll take a little bit longer on that yellow label with, well, it takes longer with the yellow label period anyway. But yeah, anytime you're using crack versus finely grained, it's going to take a little longer because it's harder to get to, but it clears faster too. So it's a trade off. I may have. Damn it, you got me scrolling back, fucker. How far back was it? Shit, I'm sorry, I missed it. I gotta get caught up. Awesome. It was, man. It's 145. I took a big old swig. Hell, my, you can see my nose got red instantly. Usually it takes a few drinks before my nose starts getting red, man. I took a big old swig out. I was thirsty. I needed a drink before I started this damn thing. And I thought it was about 100 proof. I took a big old swig of that shit. That's at 145, man. I need to start reading my labels. Yeah, me too, man. We got some festivals that we go to every year. There's a handful of festivals we go to, and we do just that. We all sit around the campfire and share bottles and stories and recipes, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. So you have to. It's getting. I guess they got Winter Jam coming up. I guess in February. It's generally that's meeting at a bar, Maggie Valley, and just hanging out at a bar and shooting the shit. So I'm not gonna drive 6 hours each way to just hang out at a bar. I love my brothers, but goddamn, I ain't going that far just for one night of drinking at a bar. You know, let me know when you're in town. We'll do that. But yeah, the festivals that we go to are a lot of fun. You know, we hang out and camp, and you know, we like to tent camp, so we get out there and break out our little sleeping bags and lay on the ground in the tent and have us a good old time, man. It's a lot of fun. So definitely Farm to Bottle is a good one. We tent camp there, and Maggie Valley for Summer Jam. That's a lot of fun. Good music, good festival. But I don't know. I think that and Arkansas Festival is a lot of. That's a good time too. They have good music and moonshine festival down there. It's a lot of fun. That's a good people down there. Really good people. I love them people. Reminds me of back home a lot. But yeah, I think probably Farm to Bottle is one of my favorite ones, and it's just because the campground is right there next to the venue. It's all part of the same big, huge park, right? So we can camp, we can see the stage, we can go to the vendors. It's all just one area. You know, all the brothers inside, you know, selling their folk art and wares and copper and everything else. It's a lot of fun. It's a good show. So hopefully we can build that up. That's probably, I guess, in the coming years, probably is going to be one of the best of all of them, simply because of the way they run it and the leniency and the understanding. Some other places are, you know, not going to mention any names, Maggie. They're a little strict on things. They won't even let us bring grains into sales. You can't even bring corn packages of corn. Corn. That's, you know, it's a bit much. So they're a little strict on some things there, and they don't have the camping right there next to it, and all their hotels triple their rates, quadruple their rates. It's expensive. So we either car camp or tent camp if we can find a spot there. Cause I'm first time I went, it was like $700-800 for a 3 night stay, and eh, uh, just no. Oh, well, if it has a lot of carbon, but not meant to adjust your air to gas mix ratio, and try to eliminate some of the yellow out of that fire, and tune it in, kind of like you would do a Bunsen burner. So adjust that to get, you just want a little bit yellow at the very tip, but you want most of the flame to be a blue with a dark blue in the middle and a lighter blue, and just a little bit of yellow at the tip is about where you want her to be. Did I screw up that far again? Now, when you say taste like that out of the store, are you talking about like a bourbon and whiskey, or are you talking about like Old Smoky and some of those? Ever have any experience with a vapor management column? Well, as far as the deflagmator working, bubble plates and stuff like that, yeah, I use deflagmator, and instead of bubble plates, I have the copper mesh that basically does the same thing. Um, so I've managed that, but as far as like a column steel that's just a column and a continuous type steel, no, I've not experienced that. The guy that co-founded DIY Shine and Steel Building with me, Eric, built him a continuous column steel, and that was pretty interesting how that worked out well for him. I was always worried he'd leave it, let that thing run out in his shine shack, and I'm like, bro, one of these days you're gonna come back, your shine shack will be burning. But never did, and I'm behind, still behind. What's going on, Brian? Good to see you, brother. Now we're going to talk about I was talking about steeping earlier instead of cooking. So we're going to get into that just in a minute. And for the beginners, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get caught up so we can do a beginning to end kind of thing. And we will. We're getting there. That's fact. Yeah, you nailed it there, brother. That's right. Yep. That's a good one. Now, if you want to, you can just use a regular condenser for a deflagmator. That's what mine is basically. It's just a short, 2-inch deflagmator, that's a 2-inch, spool that's been made into a shotgun condenser. And that's what I used for a deflagmator. That's basically what a deflagmator is. So yeah, you can put your little deflagmator on top of your column, and yeah, it works fine. And you don't want to put in too cold of water. A lot of people make the mistake of running it like a regular condenser, cold in the bottom, coming out warm at the top. So you want to go in kind of warm with that. Some people just come out of the top of the regular condenser and go into the bottom of the deflagrator. Mine, I've got where I can mix hot and cold water together to adjust the temperature going into it, because you can regulate your reflux that way, and that's how you manage where you get the liquid, kind of equilibrium is a good word, in your column, right? So you don't want it too far down. You don't want it too far up. You want to kind of keep it in the middle in the bubble plates. You don't want to overload your bubble plates or underload them where it just all drops through. So using that deflagrator and being able to adjust those temperatures is everything, right? I'm that far behind. Um, he's got all kinds. He gives away. He doesn't sell 'em. I mean, you've got all kinds. Just watch his videos. He does all different kinds of things. I mean, he's fermented everything from corn to corn pops to sugar smacks and Fruit Loops and every other thing in between. So yeah, it's a lot of entertainment. It's fun to watch. Yeah, Fibby's got about everything you need, and he shows videos on how to make pretty much everything he sells. So, if you're handy, you can watch the videos and learn and make them yourself. And if not, he'd be happy to sell them if you're local or can go by there. It's a lot cheaper, but shipping's generally what costs the most with everything these days. Yeah, instead of just use a gate valve so you can adjust the flow. Ball valve is pretty much on or off, so there's not a lot of adjustments in your ball valves. But gate valves you can adjust and regulate the flow. So definitely running the gate valves or needle valves help for sure. Yeah, yeah. Wood liquor is methanol. You don't want nothing to do with that. Yeah, they've got good bread yeast. They got good wine yeast and everything. I've used it in a lot of my different stuff, and Red Star, Deity and Red Star Premier Rouge and Premier Blanc, all three excellent. And some of those other ones are great yeast. Alvin makes good yeast. And I'm finding that Angel's got a lot of different yeast, but I've not tried any of those. But I've tried a lot of different Lalvins and Red Stars. That's pretty much my go-to. But there is also Firm Solutions, and probably make some of the best yeast out there, for whiskey and stuff. This is a good whiskey yeast that comes from Firm Solutions. They're out of Danville, Kentucky, and the guy that owns it, Patrick Heist, he's owns Wilderness Trail Distillery, top 10 bourbon maker in the world. So he's a genius. That dude knows more about distillation than pretty much anybody else in the world. They run a lab there. It does a lot of genetic sequencing and things to try to find what people have issues, bacteria, certain things, certain problems, even the genetics of their yeast and things like that. If they want to find out exactly what they've got, they can send it to them. They do it all, man. They deal with wineries, beer makers, liquor makers all over the world. Send their stuff to them. They're brilliant, man. Very, very intelligent guy. And he's from Kentucky. He talks a lot like I do. So, it's hard to hear this hickerbilly accent and equate that to some kind of sort of an intelligence. So I guess when we speak with this accent, come off with some facts, people get taken aback. They just expect stupid when they hear my accent. So I kind of use that sometimes to. What's going on, Mr. Parker? Good to see you, brother. Nah, no, I don't use it in the corn mash. You don't want it breaking up. There is a lot of cellulose in corn, but when it's ground up and the way we cook it, we get it all that starch. It gelatinizes and opens up, and we get it all. Generally with fruits, you don't. Most winemakers, you don't want to boil and cook your fruits like you do, corn. Um, Several reasons. A, because you don't have to get the sugars out because it's fructose and there's no conversions going on. So we don't need to gelatinize any of the fruits or I guess there might be some fruits that have starches that you could. I guess maybe like a banana starch, a starchy fruit. Yeah, you could probably cook that and get a little bit more sugar out of it. But generally, for most fruits that are, wine type fruits, cherries, grapes, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, any of that type fruit, um, not as much, there's a need for pectic enzyme, but not as much a need for cooking, to gelatinize. But pectic enzyme in corn there's definitely, cellulose in your corn and stuff. The whole husk on the outside is basically a cellulose. If you didn't grind it, I guess you could use a cellulose to break down. I'm not sure if it would or not. That husk is pretty strong, but I'm sure there are already enzymes out there that would break it down. I mean, that's how, other than the natural ones inside of it. See, that's how um, when it starts getting a little bit moist, it activates the natural enzymes in there, and that begins the process what I was talking about earlier of feeding. There's the corn kernels full of endosperm, and that endosperm is the starch that gets converted that feeds the growth. That I was talking about, the roots, and then the little shoot that'll come up. I guess they call it the radicle that goes down, and I can't remember the name of the shoot that comes up. I'm getting too old, but it's the radicle is the little root, and it fuels the growth of that little radicle to go in and start getting energy from the soil and from nutrients from the soil to feed it, and eventually it'll send a little shoot up, and then it uses the sun and photosynthesis for energy. But yeah, you wouldn't want to use it in a corn mash. Generally, with the fruits to help get to all the sugars inside those cells. That's the way most of them are, man. Mine's the same way. I don't use the football and the canister filter hardly at all anymore, but they're fine to use. And I'll probably use it for just like a whiskey, for whiskeys and stuff. I'm going to start using that just instead of going through the pipe, just so I can stuff the copper in there. But I'm not going to use the canister filter so much as I got a good shotgun condenser that I like pretty well, and it works pretty well. No. Now, once the distilling process, we distill water to remove impurities, right? And we distill alcohol to remove as much of the other, congeners and other things that are in there as we can. But it's hard to remove them all because they're azeotropic, so they're kind of bonded to it. So it's really difficult. But the distillation process will remove a lot of things. And unfortunately, it removes flavor. And that's why when you start out with a good taste of wine, man, it's got so much flavor and character. And you run it through a distiller, and it's like, what happened to all that flavor and character? It's gone, And a lot of times when you make a brandy, it's hard to even tell what fruit you made it with. So and that's one of the signs of how successful you were, is if you can still tell what fruit it was made with. That's a pretty successful brandy. Um, but post flavoring, a lot of people are more acceptable to post flavoring now, and most apple pie is just you distill a vodka, make a vodka, and then just mix that with your apple juice, apple cider, cinnamon, nutmeg, whatever you want to add to it, spice it up, and drink it that way. And most people are perfectly happy with doing that way, and that's the way most apple pie is done. But it like they do on the show, yeah, it doesn't come out as flavorful as what they're saying. I remember watching them do that watermelon crawl, and watermelon makes horrible shine and horrible wine, and it's tough it's just not that great. And they made it in that big old 55-gallon. No, I guarantee you that stuff that they had on the show wasn't tasting like that. But you just gotta understand that's all drama and for TV. But yeah, the best thing to do is just make you a neutral vodka, on your still, and then just post flavor. There's nothing wrong with post flavoring. I mean, a lot more accepted these days. Back in the day, moonshine had to be clear and all this. Well, that's fine, and that's the way corn liquor should be, is clear until you put it in a barrel and age it and make good whiskey or bourbon out of it. Um, but most people, if you want a really strong flavor, which most people do out of their drink, post flavor. I mean, it saves you a lot of time, money, and trouble. Trust me. I mean, a fortune of money because fruit's expensive. And if you're trying to, make a peach brandy and you want it to come out and taste really strong and peachy and sweet, you're going to set yourself up for, unless you have multiple jar rigs and can infuse a lot of that flavor back in there, it's going to be tough. Now, jar rigs or infusion chambers can definitely increase that flavor and get some of it back, but it's not never going to be real sweet and peachy like it was as a wine. Now the football has a canister filter, and it's not inadequate, but I think inside mine it had like dips because it surged, and those dips tend to cause some smearing. It'll hold that heads, and your hearts will be running through the heads that's in that dip, and it kind of gives it a little headsy taste throughout it. So inside that canister is a stainless steel flex pipe, right? And they just wind it up inside that canister, and that's what is used to condense the alcohol. So it's not the best. It's probably as good or better than a Liebig as far as um, condensing power, um, but probably not as good as a good worm or a good shotgun condenser. Right? Yeah, I definitely wouldn't use it in corn mash. I've not tried the air distiller. Yeah, I've seen people use it. Philby does video on it, and he's used it, and some people try it and they use it for different recipes and stuff. But for me, it's just it's a lot of work for such a little bit. So I haven't fooled with it yet, but they're interesting. It's definitely an interesting conversation piece, and in the tough times, it definitely could come in handy. What's going on, Dirty South? Um, there will be some heads, but they're not going to be a fraction of what normally comes off at the very beginning. So, yeah, you could pitch the first little bit that comes off just to be on the safe side, but there shouldn't be any amount, especially if it's a wash or something like that. Depending on what you have, but fruit, fruit brandies and stuff like that generally have a little bit more than like a corn, which will have more than like a wash. It'd be like your rums and your tequilas and all those. So, um, but yeah, I just pitch off a little bit just to be on the safe side because we know that there's fours and heads throughout the whole run, right? So, the, our distillation process does not fractionally distill like a fractional column can. So we're not getting good fractional distillation on a pot still. And because going back to the azotropies, they're just combined, and it's that difficult to separate them, and you just can't on a pot still. But they just the temperature alone, more will come off. More four shots and heads come off at the beginning. We know than in the middle towards the run, and the higher percentage comes off first. So when you crank it back up, the first percentage may be a little bit, but it's not going to be a fraction of what you normally would pitch. So I just pitch a little bit to be on the safe side. But yeah, but again, it's not going to be a lot of as much fours, and it's not going to be anything that's going to cause you to go blind or deaf or anything. This is all about flavor, and that's if you're going to drink it white. If you're going to age it, I wouldn't worry about it. If you're going to age and put it in a barrel, then you'll be fine. You don't have to make any cuts at all because it's going to be low heads that are pretty close to your hearts that's going to come off on the subsequent runs. So I wouldn't worry about it at all if you're planning on putting it in a barrel or aging it in a jar for months and months and months. Um, but if you're going to drink it afterwards for flavor's sake, I would probably throw out a little bit. Yeah, and they make a Boca Cob type steel. Gets 190 plus, and if you put it right on top of a. Let me pull up a picture of one of those for you. Um, okay, let me do something real quick here. Mark done with his podcast, so I can post this to his. Now, don't want to post it while he's got one going. That's would be rude. So we give him a chance to get done, and then we'll post him up there. I'm gonna have to eventually deal with that issue later. All right, what was it? Oh yeah, Boca. Let me pull this up. Boca Bod. Let me pull up a little picture so you can see. Well, that's a crazy fancy one. Let's see. This is the basic instructions for one, and I think we have the instructions in the DIY shine stuff. So if you want to check that out, let me screenshot this one. And this is basically what it is. And inside it shows you how it works. It basically has a condenser inside the column, and that condenser drips into a little collector right in the very center that it drips onto, and that's what takes the condensate out. And it's very high proof. Let me add that picture to here so y'all can see it. Those work. This is what it looks like. So let me take these comments off so you can see it, and take that off so you can see it. But if you can see how it's done, and I'll post this picture that I just screenshotted into the DIY Shine and Steel Building page, especially for that. But yeah, you can see the little collector and how it collects the drips right off that condenser that's inside the actual column, and it's kind of like a deflegmator built into the top, but it has like a drip coming right off the center of the deflegmator. My ears itching, and it'll these headphones itch me, and it'll drip right on this collector that takes it out, and that's really high proof. It'll make 190 plus proof every time, enough to call it a vodka. So I call it Vodka Bob, but it's called a Boca Bob. And if you want to Google that, you can check it out. It's got plans. I just Googled it and came up with that. And there's plans in here to make them. There's a lot of fancy ones that people have come out with and trying to improve on that design. But yeah, that thing's the bomb, man. It'll produce some high proof. And Eric made one of those too when he first started in the group. And he's into blacksmithing more now. Yeah, very, very interesting setup. Let me make a note. Let me check real quick too to see if that's in there maybe. Look in the DIY, go to files, and then hit your little search button and both will be okay. No, that's not where I wanted to go. Files, be okay. Yeah, building a cake steel, Boca Bob design reflux steel 2 PDF. Yeah, that was added a couple of years ago, so 2.5 years ago. So there's a PDF in there. So just go to DIY Shine and Steel Building and type in Boca. Let me check and make sure that this is a good. Oh yeah, this is step by step how to do it. So this will work well. Yeah, this shows all your tools and every step. So this is awesome. Brother Joe Rutledge is no longer with us. He passed away about a year ago. Posted this in there. Yeah, that's a really good one. And this guy can't solder very well, so it'll make you feel better about some of your solders once you read that. But yeah, it's good. It's a good DIY, and it wasn't Joe that soldered that. It was something just that he posted. So. The more needles, the better. Interesting. Yeah, I've got a pretty long shotgun that came on one of my little column kits, and actually, this column kit, um, I got my deflag from another source. So I'm trying to think of, but the little column kits, I think Philbilly has them too. I got this one off eBay. Uh, I think Amazon has them, Philbilly has them. Most people carry them, but it it's a pretty good deal. It's like 130 to $50, and it's the parts. You add up the cost of all the parts on there. It costs a lot more to try to build it by just with parts than what the whole little column comes out at. So it's a good little deal. I think I got a picture of it somewhere, but I gotta get caught up. Yeah, I'm 30 minutes behind. Raisins for just for flavor, or it would just add them, and just experiment with your recipes and figure out how many raisins to give the flavor that you need. You're not going to get enough nutrients from them, so you're still going to need your diammonium phosphate. Just get it. I know a lot of people. It's just cheap. It works great. Yeast love it. I mean, the wine industry, distilling industry spent millions of dollars developing the best, you know, and diammonium phosphate. Now, it's not the same as what you add to your garden. It's going to be a little different. It's not got the high urea content and all this stuff, but it works best. It's got everything the yeast need. Now, like we were talking earlier, add the raisins for some mouthfeel and some flavor. And, if you want to add some tomatoes for some supplemental mineral nutrition, that'd be excellent because there is some good stuff in tomatoes. But just don't do that if you're making a wine or brandy because it's not going to taste good. But it will add some good nutrients that will supplement your DAP for sure. That's why we're here, brother. This makes it all why we can get together on here and chat. That's about what I average with mine too. I can get it down to as low as 127 or 25 ish, and up to 187 without really running cold water into the deflagmator. I'm sure I could get it higher, but I just 187 was plenty. It's close enough for me to call it a vodka. I don't care about TTB rules and standards. I hit 187. I'm calling it a vodka because it's pretty neutral. But yeah, that's good. Those are good, perfectly fine numbers. I know, brother. You just got to get on that jet and fly over. Have somebody pick you up at an airport. I tell you, some of these flights, man, you can if you make them in advance and like Allegiant, some of these other ones. Hell, we can fly to Florida and back for less than $100 sometimes, man. It's crazy. There's a few. I think Missouri, West Virginia. I've thought Alaska, but I've got some replies from people in Alaska like no. But I guess where it's so remote, it's not something they're going to really get the sled dogs out to enforce, right? But yeah, hopefully we can get more and more. Yeah, some of us went. I wasn't able to go, but yeah, they that and Cyrus's in in Arkansas too is another one I want to try to make. like the old smoky, salty caramel. Well, you might have to post flavor to get there because I'm pretty sure that's what they do. That's not a clear. That's kind of colored. I think they post flavor a lot of that stuff. They create basically a neutral and then flavor a lot of it. If not, using infusers, that's where you get that extra flavor because it's hard to get that flavor coming off a pot, but um, that strong a flavor. But with infusers coming off a pot to some infusion chambers, and then it'll pick up some of that flavor. But it also picks up proof. Yeah, I mean, there's just it's down to a science, man. I mean, they've mastered their recipe, and you can too. You can do that at home, and actually, some small craft distillers. I've tasted some of the best liquor I've ever tasted came off a 30-gallon still. So, it's yeah. Um, but just mastering your recipe, getting it down, learning how to, keep your yeast happy. One of the most important things, keep them fed. A lot of, step feeding them, keeping them fed, not overfed. There's so many things that affect the yeast in little ways. There's hundreds of things that can affect your yeast in little ways. We try to deal with the main ones, but there's lots of different things, undernutrition, temperature, alcohol content just alone, if it's too high going in, too much sugar, that affects it, and too much oxygen, not enough oxygen to begin with. There's so many little things that can affect it. And if you can correct lots of little things, it adds up to be a significant, right? All right. I'm doing well, but I'm going to drink this a little slower this time. I think you can get it stronger for sure, and clear for sure. Tastes good, probably still have some of that flavor with it, but it's just not going to be the original, as much flavor as in the original. Yeah, Boca is definitely a high proof. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it is a drip. When you talk about shining and getting a drip, now it will come off this as drip, 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 and it is slow. But if you want to come off faster, yeah, you have to get you a good bubble column. Get you a 4-inch, 4-plate bubbler. Those work pretty well. Bananas, all right. Now be sure to leave plenty of headspace for those bad boys, man. That's the biggest cap I've ever seen came off bananas. But I have a good run with them. They have an interesting flavor. It's kind of a grungy flavor. I like it. Alone wasn't that great, but coupled with my root beer really made my root beer the bomb. So banana rum root beer. I use in mine. I use brown sugar instead of just trailer. So that adds a little bit of molasses kind of grunge flavor to the banana. That coupled with the root beer, man, it's so damn good. Let me show you a picture of this column that I'm talking about. Let me see here if I can find that real quick for you. And I guess we're up to beginning to end for the beginners. For the beginners that we're talking about, I want you to join DIY Shine and Steel Building in Facebook. Go to Facebook, and if you don't have Facebook and you're worried about it, just make up a fake name, put somebody else's picture up there, or put an AI picture up there. Who cares? And just join up. We don't give shit. But in the file section in there, we've got all kinds of. I've got a special file for beginners to learn to distill from the very beginning. And what we're going to do Wednesday is we're not going to do as many Q&As. So we'll take a few Q&As at the beginning, and maybe I'll let Clint handle the Q&As as I ramble on about beginning to end distilling. So I think that'll work out pretty well. Letting Clint handle the questions and me just do the part on educating how to begin, the tools. I'll try to bring down what I use to mix with, stir with, and I'll have some visual aids and things like that. So we'll be able to handle two birds with one stone, so to speak. But I'm still looking for that picture. Bear with me just a second. I will find it. I'm getting stubborn. I have to find it. I get mad now that I can't find it. And I will. And it's just a simple column. They sell them on eBay and Amazon and everywhere else. And I will find it. Oh yeah, here's for those who are asking, this is what my mud mixer looks like, except it doesn't have black paint. And if you can get one of those in stainless, it's awesome. If not, the steel, it's fine. It's got a touch of rust on it, but I keep it wiped down before I run it. I'll rinse it under water, and you can use vegetables with it if you're worried about that. But that works real well for the and that's a mud mixer. That's a drywall mixer. But let me get back to looking for that column picture, and I will find it. Here we go. It's in there somewhere. But this is basically what they are. And here's your deflagmator. No, I'm sorry, it's backwards. Here's your deflagmator. It's kind of short, and your condenser here. So that's about a 350 millimeter condenser tube. But this is just a cutaway to show you the copper mesh they put in there. I put mine in my sight glass so I can watch and regulate and keep that plate just like a bubble plate. And I keep that liquid just about the center of that when I have copper. This is packed with copper. And you can't see where my mouse is, like I hope you could. Anyway, this is just a standard 2-inch column that you can get off. They're 135, 150 bucks in that range. Sometimes Black Friday coming up, you'll probably be able to get it for 90 bucks, 100 bucks. So if you're looking for one of these, that's great. And you can adjust your proof by adjusting the water going into your deflagmator. So the hotter it is, the lower the proof is going to be, and the colder it is, it'll increase your condensation and reflux and condensate inside that deflagmator and force those liquids back down. A lot of the water, condensates first, so the alcohol tends to push on past, and that's how it increases your proof, reflux. But those work great on the keg steels and the football steels that have any steel with a 2-inch ferrule or an adapter to a 2, works great. That's a great little column for what we do. Now it's not as far as the bubble column, I'd recommend a 4-inch, and those do a pretty good job for sure. Yeah, they do. They have big caps. Oh, I forgot to turn chat back on. Damn it. Okay. Oh, this is funny, man. You're funny. What's going on, Bob? Yeah, I've seen a lot of people through steels. I may get one eventually, but there are other things that I'm gonna buy before. And the next thing I buy is going to be a 4-inch bubble, 4-inch column with 4 bubble plates. That's definitely on Santa's list. And if I can get some kind of deal on Black Friday, yes, I'm writing it down. I don't want to forget it. Because they're about 250, you know. Hope I can get about 50, 60 knocked off that. I'll be happy because I'm definitely getting one either way. Yeah, I wish I could do it all. There's only one thing I can get done in 5 minutes. We ain't talking about that. Let's see how far behind am I? Oh my lord, just 20 minutes. I'm catching up. Yes, yeah. Alcohol, it doesn't go bad. Higher proof alcohol. Some of the stuff that's like below 60, 80 proof. Yeah, it can tend to kind of go bad depending. A lot of times it'll have post flavorings and stuff like it that definitely can go bad. So even though it's in alcohol, below a certain proof, it definitely goes bad. I've had some that were probably 40 or 30 proof, and that's only like 15%. That's like your wine, right? That's basically like what your mash is proof wise. Yeah, I've seen those go bad even in the fridge. What's going on, Richard? Good to see you, brother. Going good, buddy. How's it going? I just heard y'all last night on Charlene. Y'all that don't know, Richard's wife Charlene and Mama B and Lisa and all them do a Thirsty Thursday girls' night with the girls. They have a good time on there. Last night my ears were burning a little bit and itching, so I got on there and they were talking about me. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. So you got to check them out Thursday night. Yeah, this column I'm looking at, it's a 4-inch, 4 bubble plate column, and I just wanted to use it for vodkas, basically for neutrals, and for fixing stuff like my watermelon shine that is fucking horrible. So I'm gonna run that over the plates, and anything that comes out that has bad flavor and I want to clean up, it's hitting the plates, and that's primarily what I'm gonna use it for is just making neutrals out of nothing at all. You know, yeah, he's running a little behind. He's busy, man. He works a lot. Talk about different types of columns. Um, the Boca, go to the you're in the DIY Shine and Steel Building. It used to be DIY Shine and Stuff. We changed the name DIY Shine and Steel Building. If you're in there, just go into the click on go to the top there where it's across and select files, and below that it'll show you where you can search for different ones. Just type in Boca BOKA and search, and you'll find the plans for that Boca. And it's just a type of steel, and it's slow, but it'll produce you some really 195, about as high proof as you're going to get. Uh, and it does it quite simply, without having to go to a lot of expense. And you can build them at home. It's got the plans and everything. It's a PDF file, and it's got the plans and everything. It looked like it was step for step, really good plans on how to build one. The guy didn't solder very well, whoever made that, but if you can get past that, it looked like pretty good breakdown of how to do it. So definitely recommend go check that out. If you want to get that high proof like that, I just I don't have time. So I'm just going to run, larger volumes through that 4 inch. My whole purpose is to make neutrals so I can, make other things with it, post flavor with it, and strip, make, vodkas with. He's been lurking. He's been here. Yeah, it's a constant adjustment, on that deflag, keeping the right temp. So that column's basically about what you got. Yeah, that's a good little column. I bought two of them just because the parts were so good and cheap. Yeah, definitely definitely a good value. What still's the easiest to run for the beginners? I would say the football still. It's pretty much comes with everything. You don't have to adjust. You don't have to worry about all the gaskets like the three pots from Bever. You don't have to worry about the condenser running, and the undersized condenser, because the canister condenser that comes with it works. It works just fine. I just got a little bit of smearing in mine. I'm very super picky, but for a beginner, it is perfect because you don't have to regulate it. It's like a worm. You have to worry about inflow and it flowing overflowing. And have to regulate the temperature. And sometimes if your flake's not big enough, you're having to add in water jugs, and if you drop it in there and it overflows, and yeah, that everybody goes through all those, learning experiences. But the breaking just the football steel is probably one of the, it comes with everything you need. You can, comes with the little pump and all the stuff you need. And um, you can see it comes with the pump. It comes with a, proofing hydrometer, even got your little graduated cylinder. You got you some clay, and I'm not sure if these are just basically for rashi rings or if these are molecular sieves that comes with this. The little clay um, look like molecular sieves kind of, but it comes with the air gap or the air gap, so you can ferment in there as well. But that's a great little setup for just a beginner. And if a beginner would just want to buy this and run it, you can make good stuff with just this. Now, I would recommend using copper mesh instead of those clay or uh, porcelain or whatever molecular sieves or reshi greens that go in there for reflux. I just put your copper inside that football, and it'll take out a lot of your sulfates, and that little canister is not bad. It's just if you have a shotgun, you can come straight off that football. It's 2.5 inch, and go into a 2 inch reducer and go into your shotgun condenser or worm condenser, whatever you got. If you want to add those on later, but if you want to order something and you just want worry free and be able to run it straight out of the box, this is it. Now, keg steels are a little cheaper, but you're going to have to get you a little column, or you're going to have to get you some 2 inch spools and stuff to come off that, and shotgun condensers. And so you're going to have to buy extra parts and stuff. So, you're going to have to buy from a couple different locations, find you a good keg, and then, you can upgrade that as well. But the keg and this are probably the cheapest, best ways to get started for sure. Well, you didn't miss none. We crashed Wednesday anyway, so you didn't miss us. I crashed 20 minutes into the stream, so yeah, I like watching the liquid dance in the copper and all that. It's it gives you something to look at. I like it. I like bubble plates for that reason too. But yeah, I'll always add a sight glass in there. Just give me something to look at. That or Facebook, and then if I'm on Facebook, my collection jars start overflowing. That's why I put them in a big pot. I put them in a big stainless stock pot, so I can just set that jar in there, and when it overflows, oh shit, overflowed again. I don't have to worry about it. It's in there, and yeah, I don't chase the proof. Only with vodkas. When I want to make a good neutral without it, because when I want to mix it with, a cherry flavoring, I don't want it to taste like corn and cherry. I don't. So I don't want that base spirit flavor in there anymore, or especially that watermelon. But I'm going to get that column just to clean up. Definitely going to be for cleaning. That's a long haul by driving, brother. You gotta fly. Flying's cheaper than gas anymore, man. Especially if you can get a Legion or one of these discount airlines. Man, it's the only way to go. My fiance used to drive up and see me when she was living in Florida, and she would drive up. Hell, the insurance on the rental car that she used was more than the flight tickets that we found out that you could get from there. So, and it's 12 hours, 24, I guess, up and back. Less on the road, and yeah, it definitely made things a lot better. You visit a lot more then. I just get mine off Amazon, but you can, there's a lot of brew supply stores. If you like keeping it local, you can get the brew supply stores. I guess Philby probably has some, but yeah, it's just Amazon. Diammonium phosphate, Fermax, Fermade, Fermo. A lot of people like the Fermo because it's organic, and it seems to work pretty well. It's probably one of the best overall Fermo. Most people, I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Fermo, but it probably, other than it costs a little more. Cool, cool. Yeah, I've made some pineapple brandies. I guess it's a pineapple rum because I made it with some brown sugar. I like using brown sugar. I like getting that grungy sweet. I like it. Yeah, yeah, I like it in my banana too. Yeah, I use a lot. I use brown sugar with a lot of things. I get that dark brown sugar. Yeah, I'm trying to catch up. Yeah, you can put. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You definitely could. Oh, that's. I thought that's some asking that question. I'm sorry. How much is the milk can? Because I guarantee you, Black Friday, that football steel will probably be less than $200. So I'm not sure what the milk cans are going, but you get the 13 or the 18 and a half. And that's a good sized pot, and it makes a good pot to cook, mash in or steep mash in or boil water in. If you don't have a big ass pot, that'd probably be one of the biggest pots you got, unless you do, Cajun boils like I've got. I got a big 30-gallon pot, 120 quart pot. I guess that's 30 gallons. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big ass pot, but it's got a little strainer inside it. I was thinking about trying to make me a little lid for it, man. That'd make a nice little 30-gallon still if I could shape me a little lid out of it. I might try that. Right, right. Yeah, it's a good little column. Yeah, it's definitely great. Yeah, Cyrus is in Arkansas. Close to Missouri, pretty sure. All right. Getting closer. I'd go with if you're looking for a bigger steel, what size you talking about? 13. Right now I know for a fact that these Vevers will go on a Black Friday. I know last year, no, it's 2 years ago, they had these 18 and a half gallon Vevers football steels for $150 at Home Depot. Now, believe it or not, Home Depot sells some of these, you know, Vever steels. So they had $150, man. I was thinking so hard about just going in there and buying a couple and then hold them and reselling them, make a little buck here and there, but I don't have the room. But yeah, they'll probably be on a good Black Friday sale. And for the money, it's 18 and a half gallon pot that you boil 18 and a half gallons in. So see 18, yeah, I'm not even, just 18 times. That's a 72 quart pot. And great for boiling your water in, to do your steeping, So great. You can ferment in it. You got a little air lock that you can put on there and make your wine in there too. Of course, you definitely need to take it out before you distill it. We know that, right? I don't want anybody thinking you can just ferment and ready to run and scorch that yeast bed on the bottom. That'd be a mess. But yeah, for the money, it's going to be hard to beat, unless you just get a keg, 15 gallon. Yeah, once it just depends. Once you really my 18 and a half, I'll run probably 16, gallons of mash in it, 15 to 16. And I get a drip at about an hour, about sometimes 50 minutes, hour and 15, somewhere in that range, average about an hour. And by the time 4 hours runs, I'm done with my hearts and into my tails. Um, any that I run past that, I crank it up just so I can get through my tails because I save my tails and use those for the next run, right? To increase your volume because there's a lot of good ethanol in your tails. I have never understood why people throw tails away that's like 80 proof tails. 80 proof, they all cut her off at 100 or 80 proof. I'm like, that's as potent as what you're drinking in a jar that you buy at the store. That's how much alcohol you're throwing away, bro. So don't throw those tails away. I have when time's a pinch. Sometimes you just don't have that kind of time, and you have to consider the expense too. It's if you run a propane, it's going to be probably something going to be pretty costly to get those tails. If you're running electric, yeah, just put a bucket underneath there. You don't have to worry about making cuts anymore. You can crank the heat up a little higher. You're not scorching anything, unless you have distilling on the grain or something. But Yeah, just, burn through them and get those tails off. Now, once you get to, 10, 20 proof, yeah, cut it off. You don't really want to spend another hour to get from 10 to nothing because it won't really go to nothing because, again, the azeotrope. So it just, once it gets to a certain point, you'll just get the same amount of water, the same amount of alcohol off, and it's just going to be negligible, like 4% alcohol, 4 proof or something. It's just negligible. It's all pretty much mostly water. So, there definitely comes a point in time when the efficiency and then the cost per benefit ratio, it's not good. So um yeah, especially if you're running on electric, yeah, you can run them on out. If you're running on wood, yeah, but gas, you have to weigh the worth of it. But yeah, I try to run those tails out because you can extract the ethanol out of those tails pretty easily on your next run, just by adding them to the pot. Every time somebody does for their first time, they're like, man, I can't believe how much alcohol I'm getting this time, because you're getting quarts more. If you have a decent sized still, you're getting, one or two more quarts than you're used to. And it's like, damn, man, I usually get about two and a half out of this. Now I'm getting three and a half. It's like, wow, and you get a lot more. So it's efficient, and it's really something that everybody should try to do, if you want to be efficient. But then again, when it comes to propane costs, you have to kind of weigh the cost benefit. Yeah, I think so too. I think stainless with copper mesh is the way to go. Um, but I love copper. I'm gonna be building me some copper infusion chambers, so I can infuse with it and help become a little less dependent on the mesh. It'll be pretty easy to clean. Yeah, I run it all the way down to about 20. Once I get there, if I want to save some sweet water, which it's when I say sweet water, everybody like, oh wait, and they keep tasting it, and it's like it never got sweet, man. And it's not sweet. It's just it's 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 a good. It's down to like 10 proof, and it's a good thing to mix to proof down with because it doesn't cause it to cloud. You don't have any more oils in it like you did most of your run through your tails, unless you're compressed. If you're running a phlegmator, everything changes. But in pot still mode, when you get to those tails, when you get down that low, you're getting past a lot of your oils, and it makes it's got alcohol in there still, so it makes a good proofing, agent. Won't cloud up on you, and it's adding a little bit of alcohol to it, so it's efficient in that way as well. Yeah, yeah, that's what you do. Yeah, yeah. Ah, you meant shots, didn't you? I'm pretty damn sure you meant shot time. I gotta sip this, man. That shit, that's fire right there. Yeah, yeah, tails can, it can. I've had tails come in at 100, 110, and sometimes down as low as 70, 80. So it definitely depends on your distillate, how you're running it. And if you're running deflegmator, that definitely has an impact too. Yeah, there's a lot of variables, and that's just comes with experience. So many variables. That's when experience comes in, because there are a lot of variables in distilling, winemaking, beer making. A lot of things. That's why we were talking about earlier. Uh, Documentation and experience is everything, and learning from your mistakes, and what did I do wrong this time, figuring out what it was, how can I correct that, and that's all part of the process. So definitely. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work. It is. If it was real easy, you're right. There'd be a lot of people doing it. A lot of people try it, and it's just not for them. And that's why you see a lot of these steals for sale on eBay. you know or on Facebook Marketplace if they're bold enough. Yeah, yeah, that mesh. Now that's another good point is when you pack that column with mesh, I mean you can start putting botanicals and stuff above it and not worrying about them all dropping down and keeping them in the vapor path and so you can create like a inline gin basket. Sure, absolutely. Good point. Yeah, columns are handy to have. And, the beauty of the column is, that big tall initial tube, you can eliminate that. If you don't want as much reflux, you can take that out. You can take that deflagrator out. You can just use a small spool going into an elbow and do an elbow straight into your shotgun and have pretty much a whiskey, in low proof, very low proof, 120 to 25 proof coming off it like that. No problem at all. And then you can add more reflux, longer spool, deflag all the way up to 187, or more if you run real cold water. So it can make it pretty flexible just having it because you don't have to run the whole column like that. You're just getting parts basically, and it's like an erector set. You can build it different ways. Yeah, Wayne does good work, man. I tell you. The quality of craftsmanship coming out of that place, man. There ain't nothing better. You know, there might be some out there that are equal, maybe. I've not seen it, but you definitely ain't gonna find better, you know, craftsmanship. Wayne makes some good stuff, that's for sure. Hey, he's a pretty good guy too. He's talking about the little ceramic balls. They're like a hollow tube that come with the Bever football steels. They're used for reflux, and I think they might actually be molecular sieves um, to increase proof. So, uh, actually, I thought molecular sieves. That sounds like it'd be expensive. No, they're not that. It's just basically. I think you could use coral. Certain types of coral for a molecular sieve, but it's just a porous thing that allows a molecule of alcohol through and won't allow a molecule of water through. So, interesting. Yeah, they're rashid rings, clay, ceramic rashid rings, what I call them too. But they might actually be molecular sieves. I've never talked to ever and gotten the skinny on them, but yep, absolutely. Yeah, that football is good for brandies and whiskeys. It's just like a good old whiskey cap for sure. Yeah, I like copper mesh because it does the same thing and it removes the sulfites, whereas the others don't. Uh, Philbilly or Wes up there in Ohio, they've got a place that's got this that wholesales this really good quality molasses. So if you're close to them, shipping is killer. But if you're close to them and you can get up there, um, yeah, it's good stuff. I'm trying to think. It's Caribbean Gold or something. I can't remember what the name of it is. I'm gonna get too damn old, but it's good quality molasses. Um, Other than that, I think Webstaurant has some pretty good deals on it, but again, shipping. And if you have a restaurant depot around you, they probably have some pretty decent. You can Google that. They will sell, if you walk in, but Webstaurant won't. I think we got one here in Kentucky, and they won't let you come in. You have to mail order it. I think your first time might be free, shipping free, but I could be wrong. Yeah, I got you. Golden Barrel. That kind of sounds. Mm, let's see. Uh, Black Pearl is what it's called. Black Pearl Caribbean Molasses. I think that's what it is. It's the Black Pearl. That's what they get. It's good stuff. Yes, you can. That's what I use on mine instead of the silicone. PTFE superior. Um, if you're coming off a keg, it'd probably be best to use a silicone because it kind of has a little more flexibility than a harder. The PTFE gaskets are like plastic. You know, they're harder, not a squishy like silicone. So coming off a keg, that first gasket that goes between the keg and the column or whatever you're going to run, I would definitely want that to be silicone. Less chances of a leak there because that bottom part doesn't have that ridge to help seal, right? So it's flat, and the top part has a ridge that goes into your column on a regular spool. So without that ridge, you want that flexibility of a silicone. But other than that, PTFE is superior in that it won't break down over a long period of time due to the ethyl acetates and acetones, which do over a long 10, 11 years kind of long period of time does have, and heat it helps break down that silicone a little bit more than what would happen with a PTFE. Definitely a little more expensive, but definitely superior. That's what I try to use. What I use. Unless I run out, then I'll throw silicone on the cold part down bottom of the condenser where I put that little lip or something like that. Keep them tails, brother. There's a lot of good alcohol in those tails. Run them on out. Run those and just save them off to the side. You don't have to use them for proofing or anything. Just save those tails, and the next time you can put them in a thumper if you run a thumper. If not, when you pour in, your mash, leave some room for those tails, add it to it, and you will increase your production tremendously. And it's just those tails are easy to remove, those oils and a lot of the things that come off those. It's easy to remove them on a subsequent run. So definitely worth saving for sure. Now, as far as heads, saving those to run for a second time, I don't do all that. Some people do that too and do a feints run, with the heads and tails. No, I don't ever say that like that. Of course, of course. You need to get on YouTube, man. Those notifications are slow on the old Facebook. They are for sure. They're slower than hell. So you definitely gotta. The YouTube ones, they send out that notification within minutes, and or within a minute or two. But yeah, it's a little bit slower on Facebook, if at all. Yeah, the sweet water is it's definitely it's a low proof tail. It just starts tasting a little better than it does after the oil. So the oily part, man, they can taste really bad, and it's but once you get past a certain part of those tails, that bad flavor goes away, and they call it sweet. It's technically not sweet like sugar sweet, but it's got alcohol in it, and it's basically just alcohol and water, and without a lot of the oils that you get in your tails, and it's good for proofing. It's good for uh, not clouding up when you proof. So a lot of times people will, proof down their alcohol, and once they get below like 80 or something like that, they start getting cloudiness. If you use these sweet waters, you can go a little bit lower without getting any kind of cloud. And basically, the cloudiness is oils. So oils will, the alcohol, and when it's a higher proof, will keep those oils dissolved in the suspension, so you don't see them. But as the proof drops, the alcohol loses its ability to be soluble to those oils, and the oils start coming out of the solution and becoming more visible because of the proof is lowering, and the alcohol can no longer keep them solvented out, right? I just think it made up a new word. Yeah, I run mine down to 20 if I can, if I got time. Sometimes I'll cut it off wherever, but it's to low wine when distilling vodka. Uh, I don't know. I've not heard of that. Well, actually, maybe I have heard of something similar to that, but I've never experimented with it. Uh, but I don't know. Sodium bicarbonate, it has a flavor. There's the sodium in there that kind of gives it a saltiness. Um, but I just think any kind of shortcut like that's definitely, going to have, you know, maybe some not so good benefits. If it were really good and worth it, everybody be doing it, it'd be the thing. But it is possible that it might help um, with the oils, but I don't think I would fool with it. Once you get through your hearts, just save those tails for the next run. And then you can get the alcohol and get that extended alcohol out of those tails that way. I think that would probably be the best way to go. But it'll be something I'll read and learn about. I'll check it out and see what the word is on that. Oh yeah, you'll always make mistakes. Yeah, always, always. We're not perfect, especially when we drink. When we do all this. Sounds good. Yeah, I've heard something about that, but I can't remember the details. And it wasn't long ago. But I don't. I did look at it a little bit, and just kind of just discredited it. But there may be some truth to it. But nah, I'll just say those and run them the next time. And but it's definitely something worth a second look, and I'll have a look at it. Make sure that they're the right kind of juniper berries. We did talk about that a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, make sure that you have the right kind because there's some out there that's not that good for you. Yeah, it's got a basket built in there ready to go. It's a rectifying head. There's a little screening, so you can put that mesh in there, and you can put other stuff in there. You can put your botanicals in there if you wanted to do gin and stuff. Yeah, it's a good little distiller. It's an awesome for the beginner. It's probably that or a keg is going to be your best thing if you don't want to buy other stuff and update. Yeah, Jennifer's for gin. Yeah, Copper, that's the way to do it. If you can build, you'd be crazy to spend what they charge unless you're just so busy and you make so much an hour that it's just not worth your time and trouble to do it. But for what you can buy a sheet of copper for, if you can actually do it and you have the time to do it, I'd recommend doing it. And I don't care how ugly it is and how bad your solder joints work. If it doesn't leak and it produces steam, it's a winner chicken dinner because it's not you're not trying to build it to sell. It's not a beauty pageant. It's some of them old rustic steels are some of the best looking ones. And so yeah, just as long as you can build it without it leaking, and then absolutely the best way to go. But it's maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance with copper. Yeah, and that's where you really want your copper is off the top of that boiler on, because that vapor, coming into contact with the sulfites in the vapor is the best and most efficient way to remove it. There's not a lot of contact in the steel itself with all the liquid that's in there, so it's not going to remove them all. And the same thing with you got 2-inch spool copper coming off there. Only the alcohol that actually comes into contact with that. So there's so much more in between that doesn't come into contact. So if you force it through that mesh, adding that mesh, even if you have copper, you can still use the mesh. It's the only bever. I don't recommend any other bever. The others, they work fine, but you're going to have to replace gaskets. You're going to have to replace the pipes coming off of it. The copper pipes coming off of it are undersized. The condenser's undersized. The little, the thumper is, puke box. Yeah, it's undersized. Everything's grossly undersized on that thing, and the location of your condenser on top of the steel is a horrible place for it. So it's good to on the pots though, to get the stainless pots. But when you get you a strip deal bit, drill through that lid with a little bigger hole, put you a 1/2 inch or 5/8 on there, and get rid of that 3/8 bullshit, and and go out further away from the steel with it, not sitting right on top to your thumper and then to your worm, and increase the size of that worm and that little pot. It's use it as a camp pot or something else, but it's too small, that little pot that they give you for the condenser. So yeah, it's yeah, I think football or kegs definitely a beginner best way to go. Yeah, here you go, man. Have a drink, bro. On me. That's some high proof, high quality H2O right there. It says 140. I think I proved it is 145. Where I put the hydrometer in there, it's 145. Bloody Butcher Sour Mash. That's my last of that. We'll have to tonight. I'm gonna add some rye to my apple wine though. So I'm gonna have a little apple rye. Somebody mentioned that and theirs, and I was like, damn it, I just started apple and I didn't even think about that. But I've got some rye I'm gonna add to that. Definitely hit that like button. I appreciate you, brother. And subscribe. If you're on Fear Believes or Moonshine Militia on YouTube, subscribe. You'll get that notification every time we start a podcast. On Facebook, Chris just now getting his. It took a while, but you get your notifications quicker on there. Stuff. But yeah, Facebook, go to DIY Shine in Steel Building or Moonshine Militia. Join those. Tell Mo Santa sent you, and we can continue our discussions in there. So we can't be here all the time, but we can help you in there as well. But Wednesday, we're for the beginners that are here. I'm sorry we didn't. There's so many questions, and I get behind. Hopefully, you stayed and listened because a lot of these questions, especially on good beginner steels, we definitely got some good information out there to you for that. Man, That's still hanging in the throat a little bit. But so look for the Black Friday deals coming up. And for those that didn't get a good shot of it, I'll pop it up there again. But this is what's called a Vever football steel. Now let me see here. Get back to that. There we go. So when you look for it, you'll see this little football at the top. That head on top of that pot. That's what's called the football. And for a beginner, for a steel that if you don't want to add or modify or do anything, and don't want to fool with buying a separate column and doing all that, this is a great starting place. And you can add your columns to it later. But if you just want to buy something and today and be distilling tomorrow, this is probably going to be one of your best bets for the money. And Black Friday, the sales will be on these. This is one of Ever's biggest products. They've sold millions of these, and for good reason. It's what I recommend. Alan Bishop, recommends it. He's an extremely knowledgeable person as well. Most of your people that are very knowledgeable, they'll look at this and say, I don't know what all the fuss is other than people just hating China because of China. And if that's so, that's fine, because, that I hate their government, but their people not so much. But, it's hard to beat. And most of your stainless parts and stuff, whether you realize it or not, come from there anyway. So that column, there's very few stainless makers in the United States that are making stainless spools. It's just not that many. So yeah. Let's see what I got right there. Yeah. But definitely, that, or if you don't mind, purchasing a column elsewhere and then, putting it on a keg, you can do that as well. But those are the two best, cheapest alternatives, and best for beginners and intermediates. I mean, this is a rectification head too. If you use it properly, you can drain some oils out of the bottom here, and at the top it doesn't show it because where it says live, but there's a little valve up here that you can open up too that helps take some of your fours off. If you put a little, I guess some kind of hose to it. Silicone, it wouldn't matter because you're not saving it, but you can plumb that away from it and have it dripping in another spot. I don't use mine as a rectification head. It's a good theory and it works ish, but it's best just to pour off the first bit that comes off. Go ahead, right? But yeah, this bottom one, you can kind of drain that out and get some of the tails and stuff out, and some of the water that condenses down and doesn't go back into the steel itself. So it captures a little bit of that here. But yeah, it works pretty well. Well, that's what we're here for, brother. We're here to teach you beginning to end. So jump in the DIY shine and steel building. Clint and I both in there, and we're on the militia page. We're in there. We can get you through it. And there are some classes. Amanda teaches classes. Amanda Bryant, for those that don't know, the awesome little ginger on the Moonshiner Show. She also has her own distillery and teaches classes. I think down there around North Georgia Steel Company, I think they're still hosting a lot of it. Some of her classwork goes on down there. People come from all over the place to have, to enjoy the experience. You have cookouts. You get to go from beginning to end. Get to enjoy your product. It's excellent. So I highly recommend that. Definitely, if you got the time and money, definitely something you want to put on your bucket list, because it's I'd say it'd be a great experience. I hope to one day drop in on there and see what's going on and say hey. I've never heard of that, but that sounds like a pretty good. You reckon it'd work? But yeah, I think I talked to Ian, and I think at Big Easy at Philbilly's, and I think they're going to start trying to inventory those gaskets if they can get it. Now, I'm not talking about the big gasket that goes around the lid; those they can't get them, and I don't know of anybody that can get those. I think you can make one with a good silicone hose. But as far as just the hard PTFE type gaskets that everybody breaks when they over tighten those on their steel every time for the 3 pots, yeah, I think they're going to try to carry those, and it's not going to be the same one, so it's going to be a little bit more durable than the ones that came with it. And I don't know how much it costs. Probably $5 for a pack plus shipping. It's going to be pretty cheap and reasonable. But to get you a good little gasket set, I don't know if they have those yet, but definitely worth messaging Ian. If you message Phil Bill, you may or may not get a reply. Ian's one to talk to because he handles a lot of that type stuff, and Phil Billy's very very busy. Yeah, once they're out, they're gone. I don't fool with them ever again. Yeah, yeah, you can do the moonshine you, or you can come here and get old Santa. I'd say you get about as much here as you might there. I don't know what they teach. We did. I'm sure they get into more of the science. I try to gear this for beginners because that's what we're pretty much geared to help here. But we did do a couple of episodes with where we got into a lot of the science of it. We may do another one. I need to go back and look at the date I did that. That way, people that wanting a little bit more than what we usually talk about. We try to keep it simple for the beginners on most of our chats, but I can take it about as deep as you want to take it science wise. But it's just I don't want to talk over everybody's heads or try. I'm not one to try to impress everybody with knowledge or anything like that. But there are a lot of people out there that do want to know this stuff, and I think the last time we taught it, there were a lot of people that really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. But um, I try not to do that too often because we kind of gear towards beginners and they don't understand, and it kind of discourages a lot of people from getting into the hobby because they're like, I knew this is going to be too complicated, and they just don't do it right. And it's kind of like math. You throw up that mental block, and it's hard to break that once you say, "Oh no, it can be simpler. We can do it easier." It's just I think it kind of. But we do need to maybe set a time for another science class where we can get more in depth and I mean we can take it down to the molecule and the enzymes and the structures of them and how they work, and I went into great detail and depth in that, and we may rehash that class, or I didn't name them all, so they're all named the same thing, so maybe I can find that date that it came out for people to go back and watch that episode because it was a lot of people really enjoyed it and they're like, wow, this is what I was looking for, and but there's always that few that are looking for that, but the majority they're wanting the basics and recipes. Yeah, ask advanced questions, you'll get advanced answers. Yeah, the Bever still not too bad. It was like it's generally 230 to 250 range, but I doubt you see it again for Black Friday 150, but if so, hop on it, man. Grab one. If I see it on there, I'll probably grab one or two just for friends that want to get into it. But yeah, you definitely can't beat that deal for the size pot and everything you get for what it is. But around 175, probably. I'm guessing it'll probably be 175, 185 range, maybe 189. How they always do, but you definitely should be able to get a little better deal on it. You may have to go directly through Vever, go to the Vever website and search for it there, and then or search for it on Amazon and just do a web search. I definitely recommend that 18.5 gallon. That's a good size pot. It's great for boiling water. You get a lot of use out of it too. I appreciate that, Mark. I see a lot of people talking and ask about instructionals and classwork and how tos and watching videos and stuff. And everybody says go everywhere else, but a lot of people don't say, twice a week you can pretty much get all your questions answered. Now I don't do the videos like George did, and Clint and I were talking about that earlier this week. I don't do the videos, the TikToks, and all that stuff, and get out there that way. And I guess I could. Um, get a little chalkboard or whiteboard, or maybe use a big monitor or something, and get into the science and do a little, get into a little bit more technical. But I just like being able to answer people's questions. And the whole theory behind this is, yes, you can look on George's videos or Phil Billy's videos or Cyrus's videos, or, there's a lot of videos in Alan Bishop's videos for answers. And you'll spend days and hours watching video after next video after next video, and looking for that answer, right? And it may take a dozen videos or so before you get your specific question answered. You'll learn a lot in the meantime, but it's just not very quick and efficient. And I decided that a lot of times people just want the answer to their damn question and now. So I'm sorry you might have to wait 15 minutes in here, but at least you don't have to spend days watching videos and for that answer, right? So I figured nobody else does it this way, so we'll just do a question and answer. And a lot of people don't do it because they don't have the answers and they don't have the knowledge. And and I'm not professional to have all the knowledge. If I don't know, like somebody asked earlier about the urine and fecal shine, with the balloon. I mean, I'd never heard of that. I guess for good reason, but I'll Google it. I'm not too proud, and a lot of people feel that they have to swallow that pride when they have to open up Google for an answer because they don't have all the answers. And I don't have that kind of ego. I share what knowledge I have, and if I don't have, we'll learn together. And I'm humble, and I try to be that way. And some people, appreciate that, and some people think, "Oh, he's just a dumbass." I don't care. That's the whole point. I don't care what they think. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, when you get about to that, yeah, there's a cost to benefit ratio, especially when you're using gas, and when you get down to 5 or 10%, the cost to benefit ratio is just getting to the point where it's just doesn't make sense anymore. Later, brother. Have a good one, my man. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, Shadow's a good fella, man. Well, you, now for wines, I don't use anything because I expect them to get acidic, and they will. And so I don't use anything to adjust the pH of my wines unless I know for sure that I'm going to be distilling it. Oyster shells definitely come in more handy with higher sugar, the higher sugar content stuff like washes and some wines where you have a fruit that doesn't have a lot of sugar. So definitely, but I only add that when I'm definitely going to make a brandy. Now, I say it's not um, doesn't have a lot of taste, but I'm afraid I've never tried it with just a wine that I'm going to use as a wine because I'm afraid that it might affect the wine flavor, but it definitely doesn't carry forward in a distillation. But with my wines, I want them to get a low pH. In fact, I add acid blend, which is citric acid, tartaric acid, and malic acid. And it's a blend of those three acids, and you use that a lot in winemaking to get you want your acid, acidity levels to be low, and it gives you a dry tart, that specific flavor for a specific type of red wines, and some of your wines that are drier and tartar. Uh, tartaric acids also. Tartaric. Um, no, it's cream of tartar that you use. But yeah, but baking soda, it adds it's better than letting your pH get into the twos. So the problem with a lot of the washes and high sugar washes and like your rums, your sugar shines, or any high sugar fermentation, it tends to work off quickly. And when you do that, you get a lot of formation of acids. You get a lot of these organic acids. I keep talking about butyric acid, lactic acid. There's a whole host of acids, propionic acid. I mean, there's lots of different acids that you're going to get coming off there. And as a result, your pH crashes generally pretty quickly and hard in those fermentations. So having the oyster shells in there to help buffer it, huge plus, and it won't affect the flavor. With a wine, maybe I'm not going to worry about acid so much because it's going to be a long, cold, slow fermentation, and when you have those long, slow, colder fermentation, you don't have that pH crash. So and that's the best way to handle those with the sugar washes. Generally warmer temperatures in the 80s and all that sugar, man, it works off quick and hard, man. It's just crazy. And they build up a lot of acids, so that's really good. But if you don't have the oyster shells in there and your pH is getting below 3, you definitely want to use the baking soda or pickling lime, which is a little bit better. It's a bicarbonate, and it's not sodium. It's potassium bicarbonate or calcium bicarbonate, and so you don't have that sodium, that saltiness, that salt, the sodium, and that affects your yeast, and they don't like it. It kills some of your yeast and it stresses, but it doesn't kill. So, and it super oxygenates, and when you increase that oxygen, they start breeding again, and you don't want that, late in the fermentation either. So you get an excess um, colony and there's not enough food, and then you start adding, nutrients. This is something you don't want to do towards the end of fermentation, right? Or the middle of the end of fermentation. So if you have those oyster shells in there, it helps buffer it and prevent a lot of that from happening. That's awesome. Probably got some good old ball jars, man. There's uh there's a place that shows you different ways of some of those ball jars are probably pretty expensive. The way the B is made and the way the lettering is can kind of age some of those. So check them. My granny had some of those, the old green ball jars, the old blue ball jars, and I remember, it's been a long time ago when they passed away, but back then they're like, oh, those aren't worth anything. We sold them at a yard sale for $1 each, and you know but now they're worth a little bit more now. That's I wish I'd have kept them. But yeah, Juniper's fruit gin. You can, but they're coming out with a lot of different gins these days that doesn't have juniper. A little different, different botanicals going into it. Sometimes more lemon peels and different spices going into it. I'm not a big gin person, so I don't do a lot of that. But Philbilly's got a lot of different gins that he makes on his website. But when you do juniper berries, it's best if you don't know the exact type of tree that they're coming from, probably to get them at the store or from a brew place or buy them in packs or from Philbilly or somewhere, because there are some juniper berries off certain types of trees that aren't good for you, and they're common. So be very careful. Yeah, and definitely using your lemon peels, lime peels, and orange peels, and scraping the zest off. They make some interesting gins. There's a lot of different gins these days. Florals, they make some flower petal gins that just sweet and perfumey and very very interesting. Lisa Lowry makes some very interesting gins. If you don't know Lisa Lowry, she's a distiller and very, very knowledgeable, and makes some really, really interesting, good gins. And I'm not a gin person, so. I'm not sure which one that is. I would deal with somebody local. If that's the one I'm thinking of, they kind of have a mixed rep. If Steven Steels, I know makes excellent steels, but I don't want to get sued or anything. But I think with his son, there were some issues. His son tried to go into business. I'm not sure if he went out of business and handed it down to his son, but there was some kind of issues with people getting theirs and getting them on time. And if they ask a lot, he would, wasn't he wasn't a real good customer relations person. Let's just put it that way. So we got a lot of people in the community that do it. If you want one for less than that, call Bruiser. He can do the same thing, probably, no doubt. Or a lot of other people, for that matter. I'd say there's quite a few that could not be able to hook you up if you just want a boiler. A Jim Baker. Wait a minute. What? A Jim Baker not aging basket. I ain't, I ain't cleansing. You nipping at that bottle a little bit harder than that, ain't you? I know it's his autocorrect. Jimmy Palmer malted wheat. So I guess that's an Amanda Palmer with some Jimmy Red malted wheat and malted oats. Did you get that from Wayne? That sounds like something Wayne would make. Wayne makes some good liquor too. I've got some Wayne liquor up there. Maybe I should have gotten that tonight. I got a little bit of that, some Toby liquor left. Excellent. It is very good at transferring. That's why a lot of your cooking pans will have like a copper bottom and then like a stainless top. It's kind of the best of both worlds. Too bad they can't do stuff, you know, steels that way, but it'd be pretty expensive. I don't see our steel builders, able to do that kind of work. But yeah, like some of your frying pans and stuff, the Pioneer Woman stuff and Ann Loves, it's got a copper bottom and the stainless top. And Beth of Both Worlds, the cleaning ease of stainless and the heat distribution of copper. Really good stuff. Yeah, I run an 18-gallon beaver all the time, man. It's what I run in when it gets cold and too cold to run outside. I bring it shit in and put that 18 right on the stove top and run her. Now you can't do it on all stove tops. I shouldn't say it, but it's only certain stove tops that you can run that don't cycle heat on off on off on off. So you have to have one that constant on. If you do, you in luck. Firebomb. Oh, you can. I mean, you can add all kinds to things to that football. It's got the little mesh in the bottom, so it's got a little screen. It's going to keep it. Now, I wouldn't put small stuff in there that's going to fall through the screen. You can put they do make a gasket that's got a fine screen in it, and I use that. And it's a 2-inch, and that goes from 2-inch to two. So you could use it on something like else, but might have trouble getting a 2.5 in that size. But yeah, if you put anything in there that you want to infuse, as long as it's not too small where it go through that screen and get down in there maybe scorch. You don't want that to happen. But yeah, you can put all kinds of shit in there, botanicals like we're talking, or you can lay out some of that copper mesh and make your little blanket of copper mesh and pack it down and then put some, botanicals and stuff on top of that. Absolutely. Works real well. What are you heating your yeast for, man? Yeah, I'm getting ready to throw some rye into mine tonight. I just threw the yeast. I just threw the yeast in it yesterday, and it's not working. So I had to put a little heater next to it, so I ain't lost any time on it. So I'm gonna put some. I'm gonna put some rye in there. No. This I'll probably just grind it up real finely. The finer you grind it, the more rye flavor that you'll get out of it. Um, but yeah, I'm not gonna cook it up. I mean, I guess I could probably. I'm not worried about any amylase or getting any enzymes or starches or anything from it. So I could probably steep it a little bit, cook it up, steep it a little bit to get a little bit more out of it. But I think it'll be fine throwing it in there that way. Um, but yeah, you could do it either way. Would be fine. Actually, I might do that just to warm it up a little bit, just to get a little hot water in there and warm up because I've got it sitting next to my oil field heaters now up there, and that should help it. I checked the temp and it was about 60, 67, 68, and that's just too cool. So I put a little heater next to it. What's going on, Ryan? Cheers, Western Pennsylvania. Here, let's do us a shot for Ryan. I'm glad you mentioned that. Mabs. Yeah, what? Mabs shouldn't after these shots? Yeah, maybe shouldn't. Yep. Yeah, it's up in the refrigerator, brother. That's proof a little bit in this. This is 140, and I know I did put the hydrometer on it. It's 145 proof. And my face is red too, I can see. Yeah, the finer you grind it, the more flavor you get out of it. A lot of people say, "Oh, just don't grind it as much." Well, I don't know what's wrong with grinding it fine and just using less if you don't want that much more flavor. So I don't know. Oh yeah, yeah, it would be. It'd be a lot more expensive. I'm out far behind. Lord have mercy, I gotta get caught up. It's about quitting time here. Get on Facebook Marketplace or it's where I found mine. And I've been dealing with him for years now. I seen him. He posted on Facebook Marketplace. I get hard red winter wheat, and I'm glad you mentioned that. It's about. I need to get up here. Definitely about that time. It's good whiskey here. The 18 and a half gallon, you'll put about 15, 16 gallons in there, and you'll probably get a couple of gallons to 2.5 gallons of hearts, and that's not proofed down. After you proof it down, you'll get a little bit more than that. But yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, if you proof it down. But yeah, I get a I get, but I generally have some pretty high starting proofs. Yeah, I get a couple of gallons out of 16. Yeah, definitely big plus. Clean it out, big plus. And it's got valves in the lid. When you get done running, you can open up those little valves in the lid and not worry about imploding and all that. So you don't need all these vacuum breakers and all this other stuff that can fail. And but yeah, after you get done, it's got a little valve right there on the lid. Pop it, boom, just let them vapors out, and it won't implode on you. It's important to know that and do that. I've seen a lot of nice copper steels go and suck right in and just crunch. Yeah, it's not nice, especially you got a couple $1,000s in it. You all proud the first time you use it, you forget, and you walk in and it goes, and it just implodes. Looks like a can somebody just squeezed in, and it's not a pretty sight. Maybe it has a lot of marketing and stuff. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that too. Amanda's is good though. Amanda goes into some depth in science. But yeah, I think the Moonshine U probably handles marketing and distribution and laws and a lot of things that you need to learn to go into the commercial end of it. It's not just how to. They assume by the time you get to that level, you already know the how tos and all that stuff. It's just how to take it from our level to commercial, and applying and doing a lot of that type stuff. I'm sure is covered in those classes. I'm that far behind. I can't believe it. Hey, brother, just tune in here every Wednesday and Saturday, 8 Eastern, same time, same bat channel. We'll be here, and in the meantime, join that DIY Shine and Steel Building page, and ask your questions in there, and but answer the questions on the entrance. But you can make a little side note or just say you from the class here, and we'll know who you are. And yeah, definitely get on Facebook, DIY Shine and Steel Building. And I think my brother Poppin Bates has one that's similar, and he's a great guy too. So, but it's a similar name. So using that Tyranny salted caramel flavor, and that's some good stuff. Trying to get caught up here, scrolling through a lot of stuff. I see Clint's answered most of it. A lot of times Clint will answer it, and I'm giving answers to the same thing. I'm just a little bit behind. Starting 5.1 to 4 is perfect. Yep. And I will say, if you're doing like a sugar shine or something like that, I wouldn't proof those down to 5.3. Start at 6 plus or whatever. It's not gonna. There's not a lot of things in there. The bacteria, you don't have a lot of like foodstuffs in there, grains and things that are going to get bacteria, or fruits that are going to get bacteria. It's basically sugar water or like molasses water or blue agave water, like all those wash type things. I would probably start those at a little higher pH. Uh, just because it's going to crash and it might buy you a little more time, especially if you don't use those crushed coral and crushed oyster shells and coral is mixed in with it. Yeah, those work real well. Boil them up and clean them up, and definitely work well. Yeah, yeah, we try to keep it simple and so people understand. Most beginners, they're not gonna, I can start talking about some, science stuff, and it gets a little bit overwhelming for people, and I can start throwing up some pictures of the amylose and amylopectins and showing how these are each little glucose molecules, right? And how they're branched. And some people said that rye has different starches than other cereal grains, and that's just not true. Patently false. They're all amylose and amylopectin. They all look just like this, and they are not different. They may be different in the number of glucose molecules in the string. They go from 300 to over 1,000, but they're still the same thing. And you still break them up using the same enzymes. They're not different at all. So you read a lot of wrong stuff in the groups, and there's a lot of people that I don't know why that. Trying to remove that. There's a lot of people that post stuff up there just trying to be smart, but aren't. So do your research. There's nothing wrong with research and posting the results of your research and things like that. But if you don't know, don't. So you talked about pectinase. So we can get into the science. This is what the pectinase looks like on a molecular level. And you see how these are all lined up and how pectinase works on the cells. Well, this alignment just coincides with how cells stack up. See, cells stack up in perfect lines and rows. And I'll show you cellulose in a minute, but this right here will slide right into those and bind to them. And when they bind to them, they automatically break them down. And so they're breaking, we can get into the science as deep as you want to get. So when those combine into here, they debranch these, right? So they're getting into this and they debranch. All these enzymes break them out. So alpha enzymes and endoenzymes. So it works from the outside in. And the beta glucanase and glucoamylase are endoenzymes, so they work from the inside out. So your alpha debranches, and then your beta glucanase and your glucoamylase goes in and it removes all the pieces of those branches, right? And segments those into something that the sugar can eat. So we can take it to a science level that, whatever people are comfortable with and talk about the science. Let me find the cellulase here. Let me find um, the cellular structure, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I find cellulose. Let me find that. I know I've got that in here somewhere. I'm not set up to. Where is that? I know I've got that somewhere in here. Oh, here we go. So over here, you see cellulose. See how I was talking about it? Lines up in rows and columns. So that enzyme goes right. The pectic enzyme, pectinase, goes right in and fits right in these rows and columns and breaks those down. So that's it's shaped. So this is amylose and amylopectin. This is the cellulose and glycogens in humans. So this is animal based. These are all plant based, right? So we don't deal with this unless you want to use insulin. And yeah, we don't want to get all Hannibal Lecter and start making liquor with body fluids. So yeah, we amylopectin, and cellulose. So yeah, we can get a little bit more scientific and for the intermediates, and we'll pick a time in a few weeks, and we'll get a little bit more in depth on how some of this works for people that want to know. Right. Potassium bicarbonate. Let's see. Pickling lime is probably one of and it's available in any store. So it's readily available, and I think it's a calcium carbonate, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pulling up the info on it now. I'm pretty sure it's a calcium carbonate, but there's a potassium carbonate as well that works just fine. But the sodium and the sodium bicarbonate, yeah, calcium pickling lime is calcium hydroxide. I'm sorry, calcium hydroxide, not calcium carbonate. Oh, it's old age creeping in on me. Gardening lime is calcium carbonate. Pickling lime is calcium hydroxide. I was thinking of garden lime, and that's calcium carbonate. You could probably use either. I would definitely use the pickling lime. It's available in any store, food grade. Both would work, but definitely the calcium hydroxide would probably be the best choice of those to use. And it's more food grade. It's designed for food grade. Pickling lime, calcium hydroxide. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm thinking calcium carbonate, but yeah, pickling lime works real well. Potassium bicarb fine. But the sodium, the sodium like I said though, if you're preventing it from becoming below 3 pH wise, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to hurt as much as the acid dropping off there and just killing off all the yeast and totally stressing everything out. So it's definitely the lesser of the two evils. Right? Hey, jump on the website. Get on Facebook, join us up, and we can take your questions and we can continue this. You know, it might take a while for us to get you an answer. We're busy and we can't, always be there to answer all the questions. Some members may chime in and ask you, help you out. We have quite a few knowledgeable members in there, a lot of knowledgeable members in there. I like your nickname. Yeah, and you know what? I would say we probably get about 8% of the actual viewers are live. Um, and the rest are the other 92% watch it later, at their convenience. And I understand on the Saturday night, most of them are out swarping, chasing girls, or girls chasing boys, or whatever, chasing each other. Uh, got better things to do, so they pick us up and listen to it on their way to work or lunchtime. But yeah, the majority of the people that listen to this podcast definitely don't listen to it live. But I do want to encourage live participation. If you do have questions and we're not answering them, you know, if you're worried about your name being out there on the DIY Shine and Stuff page, now we've got nicknames enabled, so you can use nicknames and you don't have to use your real name, so nobody knows who you are except the admins. And I'm the only active admin in there, so your secret safe with me. So if you want to jump in there with a nickname, as long as we kind of recognize it for somebody in here, or if you want to identify, oh, I'm Grits Kennedy or whoever, jump in there and join us and use a nickname if you want to. You don't have to use your real name, because a lot of people don't want to ask these questions because they don't want their info out there, and they don't want to visit from the ATF, and they're worried about these things. And it's a legitimate concern. But yeah, join it up and ask your questions. That's what we're here for, and that's the whole point of all this, is to help people enjoy the hobby and not give up. A lot of people give up because they don't have the help they need, and the help they have, the help they do have is feeding them wrong information, and they jump off the frying pan into the fire, and things just get worse, and throw up their arms and just say fuck it and put the still on eBay and just go back to this liquor store and start buying their stuff again, and we want to discourage that. We want to give people, good information and help them in their hobby. What's going on, Miss Lisa? I'm usually 20 minutes behind as usual. Good to see you. Now, there's somebody very knowledgeable in botanicals. If y'all have any questions about botanicals and edibles, plants and edible plants and tinctures, she's a good lady to ask right there for sure. We need to get her more active in the DIY. I'm checking. You are in there, aren't you, Lisa? In the DIY page, you better be. I'm pretty sure Miss Lisa. Yeah, she's in there. Had to make sure. Yeah, anytime you see questions in there about anything, jump in there as well. Oh, that is right. I've seen you post a million things in there every time we welcome somebody in. My mind. Sounds like something good. I'm just not big on the juniper berries. Pine nuts, good possibility. Good question. Lisa, you might be able to answer that. You think pine nuts would be a good alternative for juniper berries? Acquiring minds. Yeah, I think Toby makes a good rhubarb shine. All right, brother or sister. I was thinking you might have been a guy, but hey, we'll see you next week. Jump in here on Wednesday. We'll be right back. Definitely look forward to seeing you back in here. She's probably gone. That was like 20 minutes ago. Let me get further ahead. Doing the Hickory King. Sounds good. Yeah, I think everybody's doing some pumpkin. I know hadn't heard from Wes in a while. I think he's spending most of his time shredding pumpkins right now, man. Him and Philbilly got a shitload of pumpkins to do. You might have sent me 120. I was thinking you might have. You sent me a couple different ones. One was definitely higher than the other one. I do remember that. No. I mean, I shouldn't say it it can get rid of some of the water, so sure, but most people don't do the freeze distillation for that purpose. Most just basically do it for what's called an applejack or jacking. And that's basically just freezing it so you can get some of the water out and increase your wine's proof. And you want to hear something crazy? That's considered distilling under federal law. Can you believe that stupid shit? That's considered distilling. Freeze distillation. No heat, no still, nothing involved except sitting a bucket up there with the wine in it just to pull the ice off. That's illegal. That's crazy, and that's so. We need to get these laws changed. It's fucked up. That's crazy, but it's true. Yeah, I'm gonna make some copper jar rigs, and it's just gonna be basically the same thing as jar, except it's gonna have a big dump valve in it and an infusion, infuser in the top. It's gonna be the same thing, but copper, and I think it'll be a little safer. You don't have to worry about breaking, but you want to have that little, you want to have that visual. I like looking at those jar rigs go. It's watch that bubbling. It's mesmerizing, like we were talking about earlier. Right. It doesn't take off any fours or heads. It just concentrates everything and just takes the water off basically. But yeah, it's crazy, but it's illegal. And it's all this trickster. You're just taking a wine or apple wine. A lot of people do it with apple for some reason. But you can do it with peach. You can do it with any wine and put it outside. It has to be sub-zero, cold enough to freeze the water that's in there, and you can just pull the ice off, and it's you could check the melt that back and taste it. It's not any alcohol in there. That alcohol doesn't melt freeze at that temperature, but you can melt it and test it and see. But yeah, it removes a lot of the water from the alcohol, not a lot, but some of the water from the alcohol, and it increases the proof. But it's crazy that it's illegal. That's just so stupid. Yeah, and you can do it for anything. It's definitely better for a wine, but I mean, you can do it for corn once once everything settles, you got all your grains out, and you just have that corn liquor mash, set it outside. You can pull the water off, and it just concentrate the flavor of the corn. So maybe wine is a little better because of the flavor of the fruits. Maybe make it taste a little better. Yep, and back then, see, the water, they didn't boil a lot of water, and a lot of the water made people sick. But it had giardia in it, and a lot of the other organisms in water. They didn't know to boil it, so drinking water gets you sick. That's why back in the old days, everybody drank wine and beer because of the process. They didn't realize it, but in the process of making it, they were just they were killing a lot of the bacterias and giardias and other things in the water. So um, well, it's a good excuse then to drink beer and wine. In. I don't get sick when I drink that stuff. Yeah. And a lot of people use cold crashing. Now, that crashing is something that they put their mash outside in cold temperatures to help make it settle out quicker, to cold crash. And that works pretty well. That works well too. And it helps it clear faster so you can rack it off and go into secondary fermentation if it's a fruit, or to distill if you're running it. Sure. There's a reason for that. They're listening. Know right where you talking about. Yeah, inverting sugars definitely helps, and it's actually sweeter than sugar, and the yeast love it. It that basically table sugar is a disaccharide. It's a fructose and a glucose molecule bonded together to make a sucrose. It's called sucrose. And when you invert your sugar, you break that bond, and you create a monosaccharide of glucose and fructose, and your yeast love monosaccharides. It's harder for them to eat a disaccharide than a monosaccharide. So not only is it sweeter, the yeast like it better, and it less stress. I mean, again, we talk about that stress. All right, guys and gals, I'm about down to 11:30, so we had a good 3.5 hour run in. Hell, I could almost had a complete distillation in this amount of time. I could have had a run. But I'm not brave enough to do that live. Everybody's like, "Hey, there's a video of you running." Nope, not gonna happen. I'm a little paranoid about that. But I'll show my wines and beers and ferments and all that. I don't care. That's all just wine and beer. But Yeah, you probably not see many videos of old dad running the shine in it or the still anymore. I did back in the old days. But yeah, I don't. I may show you a picture of my water distillation system, but yeah, I know I have to do the same. Watch UK play. I just get on YouTube and there's always a wildcat or two on there streaming it illegally, and hell yeah, I can watch all my basketball and football games that way. Definitely, UK is going to have a little building season. I like Mark Pope. He's a very smart coach, but we're a little weak on the inside this year. Our big guys aren't really stepping up, so we hopefully can get a little better production out of them this year. Yep. Yeah, cold crashing helps a lot. It'll definitely, help your wine and your mash settle out quicker, you can so you can rack it off and run it. Definitely a good old trick for sure. And you can use it for that. You have to get it turned down pretty low. It takes a pretty low temperature. I saw some people try to do it, and and they like use liquid hydrogen and stuff to do it with, and I'm like, that's just stupid. I guess they thought that you had to be near fucking sub-zero to do this, or absolute zero to do it. Minus 472 degrees Fahrenheit. That absolute zero. Let me see. It's been a long time since I had. No, it's not 472. It's 459.67. They might have changed that shit since I was in school, but 459. That doesn't sound like what we learned. They may have changed a little bit. 459.67. Okay. I think it's more like 462 or 407, something like that. But anyway, yeah, it's very cold. So they're really using liquid nitrogen to try to, and that's just way, way too fucking cold. I think they were freezing the alcohol too. They were so stupid. They didn't have science before they did that. So they were just trying to wing it. Yeah, I try not to, man. I don't crack a whip on them too often, but it's getting close to Christmas. And I'm about caught up. Imagine that. I am caught up. Whoa, yeah, it's just in time. 11:29, so 11:30. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Had a good night. For the beginners, definitely Wednesday, Clint and I are going to do a little different. Clint's going to handle all the questions. So if you have questions, ask him. And I'm just going to vocalize. I'm just going to start and I'm going to talk about distilling from beginning to end. If you want to make some comments along to help the beginners, and if I fail to explain something or go into enough detail, and you think you got a hint or something that would help, add that for sure, so they can read that as well. And we're going to kind of just try to do that, and Clint can field the questions. He does a great job with those, and a lot of them he answers before I get to them, and when I answer him, it's the same thing again. I'm just reading his answers. So we got those pretty much down pat. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, and love having the beginners. So come back Wednesday at 8 Eastern, and we're going to do a beginning to end for you guys. So we're going to talk about first, we'll talk about, choosing what type of still for what type of distillate you want. And then we'll talk about different mashes, making wines versus, beers, and for your whiskeys or your brandies, and different distillations. And then we'll get into step for step, how to do, a mash with the enzymes versus a mash, with your using malted grain. So we'll generally touch on a lot of things, but for sure, if you want a good step for a step, you need to go to Facebook, join the DIY Shine and Stuff page, and DIY Shine and Steel Building. There's not stuff anymore. And let me trying to. Here we go. And then go to the files and look for a file that says simple instructions for beginners mashing. Well, simple instructions should lead you. Simple will probably lead you to the file. Just type in simple, and it's simple instruction for beginners mashing a cracked corn or ground cornmeal using the steeping method. So we talked about earlier tonight, steeping versus boiling, and cooking your corn. So this is great for beginners because most beginners, like me when I was a beginner and like everybody else, and it's, don't feel bad. You're going to do it. You're going to scorch that corn. You're just going to do it. So because it has a long cooking time or steeping time, that's why, because it's 90 minutes. That's an hour and a half of cooking. That's a while, right? And if you're not there stirring constantly, it's going to stick to the bottom. It's going to scorch in your pan, and it's inedible. So we're going to teach you how to steep, and get you a big ass cooler or something, insulated fermenter or something that, or a cooked pot that you can use to steep in. And we'll go over all that and help the beginners, choose a steel. And it'll be right before Black Friday. So this will be Wednesday, and then Thursday is Thanksgiving. And then Friday, your Black Friday deals will come on. So maybe next Saturday, we can, have some, if we see some really good Clan or I or anybody else, if y'all see some great deals on these Vevers or columns or anything having to do with shining or any tools that you might need to do, let us know, and say, hey, I saw here, because I think it was a couple of years ago, I'm trying to think of the name of the company that I got my grain mill from, and it was like $160 some, and it was normally like a $280 grain mill, right? Same exact one. And it was on one of these little shopping sites that I'd never been to or shopped at before, but they shipped me a perfectly awesome, grain mill, exactly what I was looking for $100 off. It's like 40% off the normal price almost. So it was a great deal. Yeah, man. So did I. And I scorched when I first started when I was a kid, man, I scorched the shit out of them, and we still made liquor with it, and it tasted horrible, but we drank it anyway. Good old memories. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that like button. Definitely go to Facebook, subscribe to that group. You can, if you're knowledgeable, you can help us out. And if you have questions, it's also a great place to ask questions, and we will definitely get them to you. Are they? Clawhammer is, that's a good company for sure. So yeah, so if you got any tips like that, let us know, and share it in the group. So if you join that DIY, it'll be awesome. DIY Shine and Steel Building. So join up, and we can share that information together and help each other. We got a lot of people, and there's like, I don't know how many thousands are in there, 26,000 members. So there's quite a few people that watch this, what we do. They don't post a lot, but they listen and learn, and they read the files, and they use stuff. Also, I've got a how much little thing I've been working on because I'm forgetful too, and I wanted a little quick reference sheet on how much of this to add. I know earlier tonight somebody said how much yeast, and that's how I knew a teaspoon of yeast is about a gram, and that's good for up to 5 gallons. And the same with diammonium phosphate. 1 gram is about a teaspoon. I learned that, so I'm going to also put some conversion charts on there, and then I'll probably post that sometime. Yeah, to my little to-do list. So I'll do that as well. So I got to post parent plans, add the Boca Bob plan. Well, we got the Boca Bob in there, so I don't need to do that. So just if you want to build your little Boca Bob column, just go in there and type Boca, and you'll pull that up. Black Friday deals, check for columns and my 4-inch column that I'm going to get, and call about my week. So that's what I got to do this week. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you all Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving. So everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Shine on. Love y'all. And we'll see you cats on Wednesday. Later.